Thanks for the warning.
Gotta get the squirrels running in the cameras. When's it going?
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Timberlane School Board meeting of November 16th, 2017. I will call this meeting to order at 7:02 Timberlane time. Mrs. Belch, call the roll, please.
Peter Bielo.
Here.
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Stephanie Doobie. Kim Farah.
Here.
Donna Green. Dan Guide.
Here.
Sue Sherman.
Here.
Greg Spiro. Kelly Ward.
Here.
Seated at the table this evening is the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Roxanne Wilson. The presence of other administrators, as well as Timberlane Teachers Association officers, will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Thank you. Could you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome again. We're not used to having such a upbeat, smiling crowd in the audience, so I'm going to enjoy this as long as I can. So our first order of business tonight is to recognize, with the help of Dr. Wilson here, some essay contest winners. So I will turn this over to you, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone who's in the audience today. This week is known as American Education Week, and we use this as an opportunity for students to write about some of the privileges of public education. So we ask students in all schools, in grade 2, in grade 5, in grade 7, and in grade 10, to write and answer a question that is given to them. And we go through a process of pulling them through the top 3 or 4 at each school, and then our administrative team reads all of them, and then we select based on probably 10 to 12 different people's opinions. We select the top 3. We select the top winner in each grade. And so in front of you tonight are those winners who have done an exceptional job in terms of writing and talking about the question that they needed to answer. And they're different questions. So we're going to recognize them tonight, and we're going to start first with grade 2. And their question that they needed to answer was, how do great schools make a new student feel welcomed? Imagine a new friend has joined your school. What would you do or say to make that friend feel included in your class and school? So the winner from grade 2 with Mrs. Barcelos is Gabriella Rera. And she's going to read her essay.
Good evening.
Evening.
This is Gabriella from Danville School.
Welcome.
To make a new student feel welcome at their new school, I would ask them, what's your name? Then I would tell them the rules, like raise your hand or do not run. Also, I would tell them my name and ask them, do you want to play? Then I would give them a tour of the school. Next, I would ask them, do you need help? Finally, I would ask them, do you want to be my friends? That's how I would make a new student feel comfortable and maybe make a new friend.
We are going to recognize Gabriella by coming around and shaking everybody's hand, and we have a little certificate for her and a little gift.
Very good job.
Nice essay. Thank you. Please come again.
Right the way you read.
Nice job. Come back and see us again. You're a great reader. Good job.
This is from you.
Sure.
It's awesome. Great.
Is it money? cute.
Do you want a picture?
What?
Do you need a picture?
I got it.
Okay. Thank you. From grade 5, the question was, if you were the principal of the school, how would you make your school great? Include 3 things that make your school great and how you can make it even better. And the winner, representing Pollard, is Armand Anthony. Come on, right? Come on up.
What would I do as principal? Many people like to go around and ask, what would you do if you were principal of our school? How would you make this school better? Well, I might just write about it, I would say. And here I am today sitting at my desk writing about it. What a coincidence that is. If I were principal of this school, I would look at what makes this school great and how I can make the school even greater. What makes Pollard School great is the events we put together, such as parties, field trips, and assemblies. Just last week, we had the 5th grade Halloween party. That was all Pollard. The 5th grade Halloween party involved dancing, haunted houses, fortune tellers, and even more fun games. Doesn't the 5th grade Halloween party sound great? Having a great school is not just about the parties or recess, though. It is about how you learn at school as well. The field trips the teachers at Pollard School plan are not just for fun. You also get to learn at the same time. For example, during our field trip to Mount Major, we learned about the temperate and deciduous forest ecosystems while having fun. We also got to have lunch and walk around once we reached the summit. Another thing that makes Pollard a great school is the teachers we have. A good teacher helps students with their work, is organized, and teaches the right curriculum. Those are things that are already great about our school. Things I would do as principal that could make our school even greater is having student-created shows on the stage at lunch for entertainment or any other time. Really, it is just a waste of money to have installed a stage that is hardly ever used. Another idea that it has to do with entertainment is more activities at recess. I would love to see a mini soccer field in place, more organized games, and even a tetherball pole installed. If I were principal of the school, I would be more open to seeing what the students think about the school by giving them a student survey. Another way you can be more open to the students of the school, think about having one-on-one conferences with students who may have gotten written up and seeing what their perspective is on the issue in case there was a misunderstanding. One more thing I would do to make our school even more amazing as principal would to expand the selection of after-school clubs such as book clubs in the library, Lego club, robotics club, and even a makerspace club. The positive side to the school investing in these clubs would be that they will help children learn in a fun way. That is what I would add to the great ideas we already have if I were to be principal.
Should we take a vote to replace Mrs. Olger with that?
I'm telling you.
Very good job.
I like the makerspace idea.
Nice job. Keep telling your principal about all these ideas.
Great job, great job.
You know, it's students like you that help make the school great. Okay?
I'm into tetherball. Kyle, come down and play tetherball. Me too.
Excellent job.
Get his resume.
Where salary requirements are.
Great, grade 7. This is the question that she needed to be answered. What are the characteristics of an excellent public school, and how can you contribute to making your school great? Winner is Riley McGrath from the middle school. Mr. Flynn will introduce her.
So Riley is part of the 7th grade Eagles team, correct? I got that right? So go ahead.
Education and knowledge are the keys to success in life. Well-educated people thrive in the outside world and become the most successful. Think about brilliant scientists that change the world every day with new discoveries, and engineers who create or created the objects that we use every day. Majority of the students in the U.S. are educated in public schools because of the amount of money it costs to attend a private school. So that is why it is extremely important that public schools are excellent and that they are well orchestrated and are producing the people that we want to be in charge of our next generation. Those types of people are well-educated people that are mostly coming from excellent public schools. There are many significant characteristics needed to form a great public school. Students attending the school need to have a passion for learning. Imagine what a school would be like if every single individual student loved to learn and was passionate about learning new things about the world around them. It would be absolutely incredible. School could be enjoyable for students as well as the teachers. School wouldn't be like a chore. Students could be learning a lot of new things every single day without even knowing it because they'd be having a great time. Everyone would be participating and actively learning. School could be a happy place for everyone. Students being passionate about what they are learning, in my opinion, is one of the most important characteristics in making a great public school. How could you have a great place to learn if the people in the place don't even want to learn? I also think that teachers that have a passion about what they are teaching is a significant characteristic to making a great public school. That does not seem to be a problem at Timberlane. Every teacher that I've ever had has been incredibly passionate about the subject they are teaching, and I think if the teachers weren't so passionate, no one would be engaged in learning the subject at all. Although it doesn't seem to be the problem at Timberlane, passion within teachers and students could potentially be a problem at many public schools. One more characteristic that I believe is significant to making an excellent public school is extracurricular activities. I feel that when students have something that they can be a part of with the school, it makes them feel more happy about going to school altogether. It is also a great way for students to make friends in the school, and when students can attend events like that, they can show school spirit and pride in their school. It is great for everyone to have something they enjoy to do and are part of a group or team with like a sport, club, activity, etc. If students are passionate about something that has to do with their school, won't they be more passionate about going to school in general? There are many ways that students can contribute to making an excellent public school that don't involve money or fundraisers. It can be the most elegant, rich public school in the entire world that has the most supplies and biggest classrooms, but that still doesn't make it an excellent public school. You can contribute to making your public school excellent just by learning and working hard. You can also be kind and spread kindness and joy throughout the school so that the school can be a happy place for everyone. You can also try to learn the most you can and consider school a free tool to being successful in life and have an education. It may not seem like it, but every individual student that wants to learn and cares about it makes a big difference, and eventually more and more students will become passionate about learning, and school can finally become the wonderful place that has always been meant to be, not a chore. Well-educated and passionate people are what make the world a special place. How does the world make more and more of those people? The answer is excellent public schools. Public schools are a place that should be filled with passion and joy, and people who want to learn. Those are the characteristics I think are most significant to making excellent public school.
That's great.
Awesome.
Great job.
Very well written.
Stay passionate about writing. You're a good writer.
Or teacher or school board member. Good job. Very well done.
She's older, so she can stay a little later. Serious talent here.
And lastly, grade 10. The question that needed to be answered was, as a student, what role can you play in the effort to ensure that public education remains a basic right? And we're proud to have Mr. Castano, Mike Castano, introduce Grace Herney.
How's it going? I am Grace's world literature teacher. I had over 90 of these essays to kind of read through, and I think what is amazing, I've only known Grace for a few months, but they only had about 30 minutes to craft this essay. And just you can tell that Grace kind of carries these ideas not only in the essay but in her ideology as a student who's really diligent about what she brings to the classroom. So I hope you guys are able to see that in what Grace has written.
Often students believe there is nothing impactful they can do to change the way their school works, but if that were true, we would not be where we are now. People tend to overlook the advancements that have been made to make learning more accessible for women and people of color. Not to mention that most, if not all teachers, adapt to students' living conditions by giving paper copies, helping get money for field trips, and staying after school for extra help. We are already on the right track, but it is more than that. It is about making education an inalienable right. As a female person of color coming from a single-parent home, I've experienced varying degrees of discrimination in my academic past. Part of the ideology of having an accessible education system is that there will be people from all walks of life who have different beliefs and practices. We already know from the Supreme Court case Brown v. Board of Education that it has been a long fight to give all students equal chances. Staying in communication with your teachers and guidance counselors can drastically improve your academic career. Their job is to make your time in school a better experience, whether that be with home life, academics, social problems. They are here to listen to their students. Building a relationship is not something to shy away from, as it is a great asset for forming our community. Expanding education to everyone has a lot to do with having leadership and citizenship. We, as students, have to look out for each other because we are all in the same boat. We should not feel as if we need to compete for anything. We are all on our own journey. Having a more understanding and open community can make a huge difference, and that can come from being involved. Going to support athletics, music, and drama can create a community around a school and encourage others to be more accepting of people. Helping classmates who are struggling or advocating for yourself when you need help. It is all about leveling the playing field and allowing everyone an equal right to a safe space to come learn and create. Representation is essential for students to see what they are capable of. Students need to be able to see themselves not only as successful, but as being part of the school community. When you are able to envision your future, you have a greater desire to thrive in your respective area. The school needs more representation to allow students to feel that they are not being ostracized because they are not white or straight or middle class. There should be a voice for every single person in our school because no one deserves to be forgotten. It is not about black against white, rich against poor, or male against female. It is about everyone. No matter where you fall in between, you should have the right to an education. There are people who live in second or third world countries who do not even have a glimpse of what we are lucky enough to have. If we can be educated and then sent out to change the world, we can make a difference in other people's lives too. That is why education is so important to everyone, because it only takes one idea to change the world. We are the change the world needs, and it is our job to foster the creative ambition that we all possess.
In only half an hour? I'm impressed.
Very nice. You're welcome.
You need to keep writing, too.
Yeah, you got a lot to say. Yes, good job. Thank you. One more thing.
We have one more recognition. We'd like to invite Mike Flynn.
Okay. So, this is Michaela Cole, and if you do not know Michaela Cole already, Michaela was in the Eco Tribune 2 weeks ago, and she had a real passion for bringing awareness to Red Ribbon Week. And Red Ribbon Week, say that a couple times fast, is what? Do you want to explain it real quick, or do you want me to?
I will.
Okay.
Red Ribbon Week is, it all started when a former Marine and DEA agent who helped stop drugs get into the United States from Mexico got murdered and tortured because he was trying to help our country be protected from all these drugs that are getting possessed in our own families from Mexico. So Red Ribbon Week is kind of helping people understand how all these drugs can cause
harm to your education, your health, and even to family matters. So, and I know a few people that have had troubles because of drugs, so I just wanted to let people know how much it meant to me because of many friends having to deal with this matter.
It's meant so much to her that she went actually to the town of Sandown and made a presentation in front of their Board of Selectmen, and the town of Sandown made it a
Proclamation.
That through that week, October 23rd to the 30th, was Red Ribbon Week for the town of Sandown. So then, she's not aware of this, but about a week ago, I got a letter from the governor of New Hampshire, and I talked to Dr. Metzler and said, we acknowledge Michaela at the building level. My admin team, we pulled her aside and congratulated her and handed her a certificate. But then I got this letter, and I'm going to read it briefly, not the whole thing, but it said, Dear Mr. Flynn, my office recently became aware of an accomplishment of one of your students, 7th grader Michaela Cole, who was successful in having her town, the town of Sandown, declare October 23rd through the 30th, 2017 as Red Ribbon Week. He goes on to mention a couple more things, but he wanted to say that if I could pass along and forward the proclamation from the state, that he himself has declared the entire week in the state of New Hampshire Red Ribbon Week for October 23rd to the 31st for 2017. So that is actually official for the entire state of New Hampshire, all because of Michaela's hard work.
Nice.
So we thought it was important. And we thought it was important for this forum to hear something of that type of work and acknowledge her hard work and efforts. And as we continue to fight this epidemic in the state of New Hampshire, people like her are going to make a difference in our world for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Michaela.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow,
Thank you.
No, I didn't think so.
Give my regards to the governor.
Good job.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Good for you.
We just lost a 20-year-old tutor is down from me.
Well, I can tell you this, the meeting won't get any better than it's been right now. So, this is about this is a pretty high point, for the, since I've been on the board in March, and thank you very much, all of you. This is pretty impressive. Nicely done by all students. I can just imagine the other students that participated in this, and you're a very impressive group. So thank you, and thank the parents for coming out, and the teachers and staff. Very nice. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm thinking we should take a brief recess, because believe me when I tell you, you people don't want to stick around for the rest of this meeting. It's not anywhere near as exciting as what we just went through.
Can I ask something of all you kids that just got an award? Can I have a picture of all the kids together?
Welcome back. We had a little short, brief recess, so the people could depart the building. Let's get back into the first order of, actually, the next order of business for the night. Sandown Schools, I'm going to take some leeway here, move this around a little bit, wait for our student rep to come. So let's go into the Sandown Schools recommendation. So,
Yep.
Christy and Tom? Okay. Okay, so as you guys are sitting down, I want to kind of give a brief little summary how I think this group got here. Back in the spring, it came to the board's attention that there was I believe, a space issue because of a growing population. So we asked the staff to look into it, and a series of people put a lot of work in, and came up with different alternatives for the school board to consider. And then it kind of, over the last 4 to 6 weeks, as we're going through our budgeting reviews and numbers, it kind of rose to the top in terms of priority. And then I guess it originated from that side of the table in terms of there's an issue. The school board has made is attempting to deal with this issue, and now this evening, I guess we've now asked. You have a formal recommendation.
We do.
So Dr. Metzler said, okay, let's see if we can get a recommendation from you people to us, so then we can proceed accordingly. Then after you guys speak, then we can, I'm glad Mrs. Green's here then, because I obviously want to hear, perfect timing, Donna, because I want to hear, would want to hear from our Sandown reps too. So anyhow, so
All right.
please.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Geary and I this evening are presenting on behalf of the superintendent's leadership team a recommendation for the Sandown North Elementary School. In making our recommendation, a few key factors came into play. First was a definite commitment to student-first decision-making. The second was a priority by the leadership and staff at Sandown North Elementary School to keep grades 1 through 5 together. That was a priority that we heard from both the leadership as well as staff members at Sandown North. The next factor that we took into consideration in making this recommendation was the 2017 NESDEC projections up through the 2020-2021 school year. We also considered the capacity for which the school was built. We took into consideration the openness that was felt by Mr. Geary and I in terms of discussing the non-instructional space at Sandown North, and the idea that there could be some options for utilizing the non-instructional space differently. And we also, as asked by you folks, we did take into consideration both the district and the state recommendations for class size. So I do have the school district policy and New Hampshire state recommendations there for you. The school district policy currently states K-1 classes do not exceed 20 unless waived by the school board. Grades 2 to 3, 23 is that number, and grades 4 and 5, maximum class size is at 26. The New Hampshire state recommendations are for grades K to 2, 25 students, grades 3 through 12, 30 students. I'll move now into our recommendation. Recommendation for Sandown North at this time. The SLT recommendation is to maintain the current grade 1 through 5 configuration at Sandown North and pre-KK at Sandown Central for the next couple of years, and to monitor and reevaluate each year. This recommendation may require waiving maximum class size policy at grade 1 in the next few years. You'll see that outlined in the next slide, where the waiving of class size at grade 1 may be necessary. With an increased class size at grade 1 and with enrollment numbers as they are currently projected, no additional classroom space would be necessary until the 2020-2021 school year, at which point a unified arts class may need to move to an alternate location. Increasing class sizes further than what we've proposed, in lieu of relocating a unified arts classroom, would not be recommended. We feel that an increase to the level whereby it might affect instructional effectiveness and where that might be compromised would not be a comfortable decision. So relocating that unified arts class would be the recommendation in lieu of increasing class sizes further. The next slide here does show you In the first column, you see the current 17-18 configuration for grades 1 through 5. Currently, we have 4 classrooms of grade 1, 4 classrooms of grade 2, 3 of grade 3, 3 rooms of grade 4, and 4 rooms at grade 5. That's a total of 18 classrooms and 18 classroom spaces available at Sandown North. There's 1 dedicated room for music, another dedicated room for art. Enrichment, FLES, and technology you see indicated there as CART, which means that students are serviced in their classrooms, in their core classrooms. Enrichment, FLES, and technology push into the classrooms to provide service to the students. In the 18-19 school year, this is based on NESDEC projections, as well as the 19-20 school year. You notice that things remain constant. Looking at a need for 18 classroom spaces in both of those 2 years. Everything remains the same for the art and the music room. And again, enrichment, technology, and FLES would continue to service students, provide instruction in the classroom. In the 2021 school year, this is where things shift just a bit. You'll notice that there's a need for 19 classrooms, 19 classes. 18 classroom spaces are available. This is where we might propose an alternate location for art. And you can see that indicated there in the final column on your chart.
Yeah, what we're speaking about is moving partition walls or being able to reclaim space that's currently occupied as office space or small group instruction and shift things around in the current footprint of the building.
That concludes the recommendation of the superintendent's leadership team.
So, thank you very much. So it's, the overall recommendation is to stay put for the immediate future.
Yes.
And you just will periodically keep evaluating it.
Yes. So the NESDEC projections are recalculated and are available, distributed to the school districts annually. So based on those projections, I'd like to see that this type of analysis be conducted each year with those updated calculations and projections provided to us by NESDEC.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Farrow.
Part of this whole discussion came about due to what seemed like unanticipated growth in Sandown that NESDEC underprojected, correct? What is the projection on NESDEC to what we have actually right now? It's underprojected, is it not?
Based on this year's numbers, I would need to take another look at that. I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm just, so on looking at this then, we're not, your asterisk on 18-19 for grade 1
right.
means that the board will have to make a waiver to those classrooms.
Yes, as I had.
4 classrooms, well, no, actually just one classroom.
Right, just one
Assuming
class.
that those numbers are
Right.
in line.
It's actually one grade level, right, it would be one grade level.
In one classroom.
In one classroom, right, one classroom.
If in fact it does happen. Then you won't know
Depending on
until
what the
the 18th.
actual numbers are as compared to projected numbers, yes. Yes, and you are correct. The, this year's numbers of students and was off based on the NESDEC projection.
And how much was it off by?
Give me a quick second and I can get that for you. Slightly higher in grade 2. There was a NESDEC projection of 80 students at grade 2. Came in lower. We have currently 74 students in grade 2.
So NESDEC predicted higher?
Yes, they did,
In
actually.
actuality, it's lower.
Mm-hmm.
So NESDEC was wrong?
Under-projected in grade 3, projected
wrong.
59. We have 62 students currently. The others were off by 1 or 2.
They were wrong by 1 or 2, or we
Right.
were, so they were wrong?
69. They were above 1 in grade 4 and above by 1 student in grade 5.
I'd say they're still pretty good, I was gonna say. I mean, once you're within 5 kids or so, I would think that's about as good as you can get.
And NESDEC seems to be over-predicting in 90% of the cases. There's only one underestimate.
So the point is, we have space right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Through 2021,
Correct.
with some,
In the analysis, we didn't go out any further than that. I think with the understanding that the NESDEC projections are recalculated each year, it doesn't make sense for us to use 2017 and go much further than 2021.
Right, that's actually one of my questions. What is the year of those NESDEC projections?
2017. Yeah.
They predicted in 217
They were the 2017.
predictions.
Well, when did they
Predictions.
actually do them?
this is, well, the data, the report that I have is May 31st.
Of
Correct.
what year?
I believe
This
so
year.
as well.
2017.
Okay.
Yes. Yep, that's the date that I have on the projections that I'm using as well.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Other questions from the board?
No, I have a
Please.
quick comment.
Kelly?
I've had some people reach out to me with regard to class size, and as you can imagine, parents are concerned about class sizes being waived and then just saying, well, it's just one more, or it's just one more. And eventually it's 5 more, and you're approaching maximums and inefficiencies and stuff. And
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to ever see that.
I would agree.
As opposed as I am to increasing class sizes, I think if it's by 1 student and that's based on a projection that's usually over-projected, so there's a fairly decent shot that it's not gonna happen, but we'd have to see when we get there, because we really don't know.
Right.
I don't see this as such a terrible option. I just wanted to state that publicly.
Mrs. Green?
We were given the enrollment report, but we, as a board, specifically asked for the tuitioned students to be broken out, and they were not broken out in the elementary grades, which is the most important thing we need to know. So why weren't they broken
Yes,
out in
Mrs.
the
Green.
elementary grades?
Did the chair ask for that, or did Mrs. Green ask
Well,
for that?
I think
I
the,
do,
that came up
Yeah,
at the
but
last meeting.
I know, it came up from Mrs. Green, but was it decided by the board we wanted the tuition students broken out?
we do have the data, are you referring to kindergarten students?
No, it says tuition students are included in the elementary school totals, and they're not broken out here.
Can you just show me that, did I get that sheet? Did I just get that? It's like too many papers.
So we have a bunch of papers, there's no question.
It's right here.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I think this is a pretty important piece of information that we're missing, that we specifically asked for, because that is, we should know how many tuition students are in the elementary schools in Sandown, so we know, what our wiggle room is.
Looks like this
Well,
one.
Piece of paper?
either, as of right now, though, sounds like immediate future
This thing.
is not an issue anyway, space-wise.
I'd like to know how much
There's a
wiggle room
comment
we
down there
have
about the
below
tuition
that.
students.
Oh, that's, there's nothing wrong with that, but it sounds to me like in the immediate future, we seem to have adequate space. That's what I'm hearing, whether it's
Whether
tuition
it's with students
or,
without.
so, I agree, that would be good information to have, but, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. we specifically asked for it and it isn't here, and I don't,
Oh.
we did not.
Either way, either way, that we have space, tuition, non-tuition. I do believe we make sense for the future. How this breaks down tuition versus non-tuition students, makes sense to do that. But it sounds to me like for this immediate future, this is under control. That's what I'm hearing. My conclusion
Correct.
is correct. So there's a Sandown resident in the back of the room, so in light of that, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about a couple of meetings, which I don't see the urgency in those meetings right now. Obviously, we want to hear from the Sandown residents on any potential changes, I would think, but the immediate, sounds to me like the immediate future here is there is no change. Mr. Beal.
Do we need a motion to, adopt the recommendation, or do we just go forward with the way it is? Whatever's your pleasure.
Mrs. Green?
Yeah, I'm not finished discussing this.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah, I'll give you the floor back, but I don't see any reason.
Okay.
Right now, if we're still functioning as we've been functioning.
I was just asking the question,
Yes.
Brian, whatever you wish.
Yes. Go ahead.
So, I have to take everything given to me with perspective, historical perspective. We were told it was so urgent, they were staking out the space for the portables at the beginning of this academic year, right? It was so urgent. We pushed back on that. And then we were told, it's so urgent, we have to move first grade into Sandown Central, urgent. And we have to do the kitchen and blah, blah, blah. And then the recommendation came up, well, maybe we should just reverse everything and put fourth and fifth grade back in Sandown Central the way it was originally, and just put things back the way it was, which would of course be politically embarrassing to certain elements. But now we're being told there's no urgency whatsoever. So, what are we supposed to believe here?
Well.
Excuse me, just a point of
Okay,
reference.
wait a minute, please, Tom. I hear what you're saying. It was approximately 6 months ago that this issue was brought to the board's attention. Yes, a group of us went out and did the facilities visit. Yes, there was stakes in the ground. I cannot speak for the administration in terms of what the rationale behind that was, and we as a board, I believe, asked the administration to come up with, basically to give us a snapshot of what's going on here, and we I believe received 4 recommendations.
Those were actually not,
options?
yes, they were
Well,
options. We were never asked to create a recommendation,
okay.
but those were options we explored and studied.
So, and then at our last meeting, it was put back on us that, well, you didn't ask for a recommendation. And quite honestly, my expectation is whenever professionals in that side of the table, I would expect a recommendation. So you people are professionals. I'm not expecting us to direct what's happening here. We oversee it, weigh it in, we make a decision as a board. So I can't fully explain. I understand Donna's point, but this situation arose from across the table. It's been reviewed. It came back, well, as far as I'm concerned, it became even more significant over the last 30 days as we started looking at CIP and saying, and we're all one vote. There's 9 of us here, so as we're all doing our due diligence here to oversee the Timberlane School District, it made sense that we should have a better idea what is going on in Central and North, so we didn't make improvements and box ourselves into a solution two years down the road, which might not make sense for the district 2 years down the road, if we've already spent $300,000, $400,000 doing something that would have to change. So we are here tonight. There's always been bi-weekly conversations when myself and Dr. Farah go in with the superintendent and prepare for these meetings. No, he was, guys, you're fine. Well, you're the superintendent, so it's not up to me to tell the superintendent. So obviously there was something was going on, communication type thing. Don't know why. So to Mrs. Green's point, there was a bigger issue than what I'm hearing right now. And I'm personally, as on being a member on the school board, I'm happy to hear that this is has to be done like tonight, next week, next quarter. So I'm very happy with that there's time on the clock to look at something more in the long term. So obviously, and what I'm hearing from the team here is you're going to conduct school just like you have been in the last couple of academic years. And even as of right now, you're not even looking for a waiver, class size waiver from this board.
That is correct. I'd also like to mention that Mrs. Georgian and her staff worked really hard over the summer after the presentation in May to look at their space constraints and to reconfigure some of their spaces. So as you can see there, technology was one of the spaces that was fairly crowded. I believe it was a shared space, a dedicated computer lab. And that was just one example that Mrs. Georgian and her staff moved the technology to service or to provide students with use of technology within their classrooms, which again, those are just some of the changes, if you will, some of the reconfiguring of spaces that Mrs. Georgian and her staff conducted after their presentation in May. So I think that also helped to alleviate some of the congestion there within the school.
Okay, is something you wanted to say, Tom? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I don't think any of our options included moving the 4th and 5th grade back to St. Anne Central. I just wanted to clarify.
No, not your options. I did mention that last meeting, just because it
I
was
just wanted to
another
clarify
option.
what we
I
presented
thought we were just brainstorming.
versus what
Well,
was
All of
Yeah,
this
it was
was
a brainstorm.
That's what we're doing.
brainstorming at that point.
That's what we're
There
doing,
were
right.
no recommendations, so Donna's list, they were just brainstorming things. We could do this, maybe we need to do this. Kitchen, not a kitchen.
That's what brought about, we should get an official recommendation.
That's finally what brought about, let's put this, right, get it done.
Okay.
Chairman Boyle, can I just also mention that as we go through these processes in many schools, we looked at what was needed. There was, obviously some people in the spring who came and saw that, the students were coming in from other school districts and apartments were built, and that is what I think really drove a lot of this in the spring. But through the summer and through observations of other eyes, because we hadn't really been in the school to that point to really look at other options, I think that's why we're here now, to say we do have other options. And that's what all of this process is. Every school goes through it when they're getting into space constraints. So, yes, we could probably, is it ideal? No. But can we do it for another 2 years, maybe 3? Probably, which is what we're saying here. But in the meantime, we still need to look at, so what happens, down the road if we do see some more enrollments? You look at it annually, you make sure that, you're aware of what our other, constraints could be, or where can we go the next time. So that's what we're doing now. But to keep the goal in mind, which is the kids together, first, through 5th, which was very important to the school because of the culture and the climate there. And it was all around students first, so adults gave up some of their space in order for that to happen. I think that's the process that we go by. So we don't have to have all the answers in a linear progression. It does get a little bit more, clear as the months go by.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Green?
So I would just like to challenge that value of the culture. Nowhere has the board endorsed that as one of our values, and I want to push back on that a little. We have options here, and the board has not endorsed this culture of 1 through 5. So you don't
Sorry?
think we
I'm sorry.
should endorse it?
I'm sorry, wait a minute, sorry.
Students first.
What-
This is, I'm hearing, oh, you know, there's a great value in keeping kids 1 through 5. You know, I'm not buying that at all. And nor has the board endorsed that as one of our values. So I don't want this culture to be forced on the board as the decision already made, because it isn't. And Sandown had 2 excellent schools when the children were separated at 4th and 5th grade in Sandown Central. Excellent, excellent academic achievement. So don't tell me that the students come first by being squeezed into one school. I just want to put that on the table. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Dr. Carr?
In terms of the tuition students, was that on the list that you had sent me earlier in the, Mrs. Green did send at the last meeting, she mentioned that there were certain things that she did want. And so I asked her to send me a list, so that we could see about getting those. I do have some of that, I do have the kindergarten numbers right here, and I do have the standards for new construction for building, and the class size information and the NESDAQ numbers, which are, and I'm sorry, I didn't give it to you early, but I do have some of that information. The tuition number, I don't know, I can go back and have another discussion about that. You know, to be honest, I am, in a sense, almost as perplexed as you are in terms of how this has all played out over the last several months. It's surprising to me, and I'm not going to dwell on it at this point. I don't think, based on, you know, what I see and the fact that you have a school that, you know, only has kindergarten through 1, and you have another school that's having to really make changes to its, and give up staff rooms and have other things, that this may be the solution for up till 2021. I think it's going to be something that has to be revisited as early as next year. As you say, these numbers may increase due to the apartments or building in Sandown. And I just, you know, at this point, I'm not sure where we, you know, other than leaving it status quo as we move into this next, as we're in budget season and trying to project what to do, what else to do at this point? I mean, we're up against the fact that if we start making changes to who's in what building, it comes at some cost. And unfortunately, and I mean, this was the whole reason I tried to push this and wanted it, say, by August 1st, but didn't get it till September, there's nothing compelling us to make a change. And again, I feel like if we did, we'd be too rushed again, even for this year, even though we started back 6 months ago looking at this. So that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I just add, in terms of a comment made that we shouldn't be holding a culture of students first, I will just say in terms of the SLT, the Superintendent's Leadership Team, we will never apologize for having an attitude and a philosophy of putting children first and making decisions that go through kind of a process of how does it affect the children. And we go through this every year when we go through budgeting. We have that kind of visual in our mind of that target, and who's in the middle of that target? The students. And so we try to make those decisions based on what happens and where's the impact as you move through the outer circle, which is the adults over in the outer circle. So I know that, you know, perhaps the board hasn't voted on it, but it is certainly endemic to what the SLT promotes. So I just thought I'd let you know that.
Well, thank you.
respond to that, please?
Yeah, look, very brief. I don't wanna, you know,
At no time did I say students aren't first. I was just saying that the culture, the so-called culture of keeping 1 through 5 is not a board, an established board value. And at no point did I say children's interests aren't coming first. What often happens is that adult interests are disguised by children's interests.
okay, so, okay.
Real quick.
Sure, Kelly.
You could say that keeping 1 through 5 together is a culture in this district, because Pollard has 1 through 5, Danville has 1 through 5, Atkinson has 1 through 5, right? They have they have that culture in there, and we talk about equity and having the same for all of our students, and the benefits of having 1 through 5 and having the bigger kids lead the younger kids, and having that part of a culture in 3 of the 4 schools isn't fair to the 4th school. So the teachers had brought that up many months back, that they wanted to be equitable with the other schools and be part of that and have that same culture throughout the schools. So I think that was brought up back then, and that was part of the consolidation. They were looking to have that brought to that school and be part of that school. That was one of the things we talked about in that committee, and one of the reasons we went forward with that back then. So it was kind of brought to us back then, and I think it is part of the district through that. My 2 cents.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're good. So, for the immediate future, it looks like we're gonna keep doing what we've been doing.
Thank you.
And obviously,
Thank you.
seeing what's come up, I think obviously you would, I'd say keep a closer eye on it. Okay, thank you.
It would be helpful if we got enrollment numbers when they were reported and not 7 weeks later.
Okay, budget update. Jeff, please.
Yeah.
I'd like copies of all that material as well, please. Not
Most of-
instantly,
No, I'm
but
not
later
getting-
on.
I'm
I mean, you
not
know.
getting it. Well, it's just.
Mañana.
Most of it's just the NASDAQ report, and all
Also,
it
I'd like
is.
to acknowledge the chairman of the budget
Yeah,
committee has
just
joined us.
just
That's,
drop an
thank you
email
for coming in.
I'm not certain, I believe that you may have the CIP update item on there as well, and I want to make sure that you make that sort of copy of the CIP document.
Oh, yeah, I saw this online. Dr. Farah, is this for me?
Yeah.
Personal copy?
Well, Peter wants one too, but I think you can take that if Kathy knows what's in there, because Peter wants, Kathy, this is Belcher. Oh, no. I'm getting confused.
So, could I ask why we didn't get this before the meeting?
I just got it. I don't know.
I have one already.
All right, so these are extras. Good.
Okay,
So this is the latest.
that's what we have right here now. Thank you. Nice to have
5:32
lights,
PM
very nice.
today. Right.
This is the current CIP
Request.
request. Okay.
And again, good evening, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I believe you've seen a copy of this in form with the CIP's final recommendations, with this board's most recent recommendations in the next column as of the 2nd of November, and the Budget Committee's recommendations as of the 9th of November. This is a running tally, if you will, for that document, and good to keep everyone updated as to where each board is in the process. As far as the budget goes, I'm pleased to let you know the budget is on track. The Budget Committee has been reviewing and has reviewed, I think, almost all of the department budgets, all the department budgets, really. They have one more final review coming up in the next meeting, which is on the 21st. At that meeting, I'm working now to move our staffing over and up and do all the adjustments that we need to do, and expect to have that budget in not final form, but a full draft of the budget available for that meeting. So we're in good shape, I think, on that. We did have a couple items come up, and if Mr. Geary is here, we did have we did have the results of a bid come in as well on our PAC.
The acoustics upgrade, that the board initiated a sound study last year. This was after the building tours for the budget committee. There were complaints, health and safety complaint regarding the acoustics in the practice rooms in the PAC, specifically rooms 107, 116, and 119. So a designer was hired last spring to provide architectural documents for an RFP. We posted the bid documents on October 8th. Very well publicized. We used Dodge Reports, New Hampshire Bids, and even directly emailed contractors that are respected in the industry. So last Thursday, November 9th, we had the bid opening. We only had one bidder submit, and the price to do the project came in at $63,905. The original budget numbers were in the range of $75,000 to $85,000 when this was in design last spring. So wanted to bring that to the board's attention, that we do have a bid in, and we could get going on that work as soon as possible.
We have
Okay.
money budgeted for that.
Well, thank you.
Don't have money budgeted for that?
We don't, no. We had agreed to do the work last year, and the work, to the extent that we were able to have our initial study and design study completed, we were able to encumber the funds to roll over into the current fiscal year. To cover those, we did not have a number to encumber for the work relating to the PAC work itself. And this is a bid that was received and requested and received as per board direction in 3 parts.
Yes.
The 3 different rooms.
The 3 different rooms. So room 107 came in at $35,076. Room 116 came in at $16,766. And room 119 came in at $12,069. So we specifically broke it down into 3 sections.
Well, I put this, thank you. I put this on the agenda, quite frankly, to talk about the budget. Appreciate the update on the bid opening. I have to tell you the truth, Jeff, I personally don't share the optimism on the budget. I'm personally a little disappointed that I know this is a process that evidently is relatively new to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that you're going through with the budget committee and building to building.
Mm-hmm.
And I was personally kind of hoping that we would have a total budget by now, a total number to look at.
Mm-hmm.
I understand now where you hope to have that the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Was I not clear at the last meeting that?
you were clear,
Oh, okay.
but there was, I have had 3 or 4 conversations with the superintendent in the since then.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I guess we were hoping, I know, no, absolutely. Were you clear? Yes. But when I also looked at the last probably 3 or 4 years of minutes, we're probably a week or 2 behind, that historically, as I went through the last 3 or 4 years of minutes of, and actually some of these people were on these boards, Mr. Stoninger would come in and throw a number, present a number. 2 weeks later, the number's adjusted down, a process, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, looks like something like that's going to happen again, and it's just a week or 2 not on the clock. So basically, whether it's a school board, the budget committee will clearly be under the gun, because obviously we go backwards, as you know. You've got your state deadlines, your public hearing deadlines, and you go backwards. How you can, through review, and get yourself ready to present to the public. So what I was hoping to do, which I knew that as of this morning, well, actually, I'm sorry, I knew that as of yesterday, that there was not going to be a budget tonight, because I was, yes. But the last time you came in front of this board, the board was under the impression it was the 21st.
Mhm.
I guess I was under the false impression it might have been before that.
Oh, okay.
That's
Well,
okay.
no. Let me clarify here. You said that the budget committee meeting would be on the 21st.
Mhm.
Typically, you've told the budget committee that a week prior,
Mhm.
that you would have the budget documents uploaded so that they could review them, correct? Because this meeting is on a Tuesday, not on a Thursday as scheduled,
Mhm.
that would kind of push it so that you would probably have these documents uploaded by today. Because, the budget committee is meeting on Tuesday now, and we're not even 5 days. When do you anticipate having the budget committee's budget posted? When do you anticipate that? They meet on the 21st. I'm sitting on the budget committee. I have a $70, $71, $72, $74 million budget that I'm gonna look at before the meeting. How much time am I gonna have to do that?
The budget will be posted
When?
when it's complete.
So is that Friday, Saturday? I mean, because honestly, looking through the minutes, having watched the school board meetings, and please, veteran members here, has it not been in the past that Mr. Stokinger would come to the school board with a budget number that the school board would agree that the superintendent takes forward to the budget committee? Is that incorrect?
Ann?
That's not Mrs. Stokinger.
Okay.
No, but he is.
Well, I mean, he's gonna do his job differently, right?
No,
I mean,
no.
that's what I would expect.
No, it's the process. Let me put it a different way. Did not the business administrator or the business manager, or whatever the title happened to be, come to the school board first with a proposed budget that the school board would say, yes, please take that to the budget committee?
Yes,
Anybody?
he did.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman? I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, because I've
exactly
been
right.
watching this, okay?
A
So-
draft.
A draft.
A first
okay.
draft, a second draft, and I don't know the dates, but he would do that.
But it was
Well-
always subject to change, and he was shooting from the hip.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are, but shooting from the hip, not shooting from the hip, knowing Mr. Stokinger, I would say it was a little more accurate than shooting from the hip. But we have nothing to inform the budget committee of where this board feels that budget number should be, because we don't have that. So I'm not talking about how Mr. Stokinger did it, I'm talking about the process. The process. How are we gonna do this now that this board does not have a budget before the budget committee meets with the proposed budget that we're not even sure, when they're gonna get that?
Well, it is the budget committee's budget, and I'm very pleased that the budget committee has the thoughtfulness to add a whole meeting on the 30th for the joint committee meeting to have that discussion.
Again, it is the budget committee's budget.
Hmm?
In the past, as long as I have been watching school board meetings, and anybody who's been on the school board for a long time, please correct me if I'm wrong, the school board has always given the superintendent, as the governing body, which we should do, the budget number that they would like presented to budget committee. Can anybody who's been here longer than me dispute that, please? So I am not incorrect.
You're
So
free to give the budget committee, the superintendent, a number to give to the budget committee. I'm not
It would be
preventing you from
nice to
doing that.
base that off of a proposed budget, however.
Yeah.
So, let's put it, when can the school board get a proposed budget? When can the school board have a proposed budget?
The budget will be posted as per usual and on the budget committee website. And when the budget is complete, it'll be posted on the website.
So-
And
We still can't get a date. We can't get a
we're
date.
working through the budget. And their meeting is the 21st. It will be the 21st or before, ideally before. Please bear in mind, by the budget committee's own process this year, they're hearing department budget requests at a meeting, and at the subsequent meeting, they're discussing those requests and their disposition of them. So there are a number of department budgets, high school budget, middle school budget, athletics, music, that the board has not given consideration to, and will be doing so on the 21st. So they'll have a budget that they haven't even gotten to a point of working through. It's still a work in process for them as well at that time. So they haven't made any adjustments or recommendations to those budget areas.
Right, so that's 5 days from now, and 2 of those days are Saturday and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what's under the purview of this board is as you pointed out, the last meeting, is the default budget. So that's why I asked you, and thank you for the information you gave me there Monday night. I asked the business manager to give us the last year's budget was $71,328,092. That's what the voters approved. There was also a couple of warrant articles. One was capital reserve, and one was the support staff warrant article for $181,000. So my understanding and experience of the default budget, as we talked about briefly at the last meeting, you would take last year's approved budget. You would add to that budget any contractual obligations, i.e. that you've got the support staff, which was $181,322.88.
This year it's less.
And
It's less.
and then you also have to add the, I believe, I think that was voted on a couple of years ago, the TTA contract, which you gave me, is you add to that $643,193. Okay? Now, I believe then what you do is, by definition, now you would take out one-time expenditures, which by,
Unlikely to recur again, right? That's the phrase.
Well, I think you forgot a couple other adders.
well, I know there's other edits.
Okay.
I'm just,
Can we just hold right there, though, because I've got a question on these TTA numbers.
okay?
This TTA number of 643,193, that is not the number from the Warren article. Is that the actual calculated number? Because
Yes.
the number for the Warren article for the third year of the TTA raise was different than this number.
Okay.
So is this a calculated number? Because this is not the number from the warrant.
That's a calculated number, that's correct.
Okay, so it's about 80,000 less than what was voted per warrant 3 years ago.
Excellent.
And I'm a little confused on the TSSU number. On this sheet, it's 133. Is this a different number that we need to add on to?
Yeah, it's an addition to, it's 2.3% versus,
We need to add that on to the 181 in terms of the voted budget for this,
Yes,
so that's
That was-
131 on top of this 181.
yes. That was the first year, increase.
And this is
That's
the
happened,
second year
and that's the second
increase.
year increase.
So that 133 gets added on to the default budget. Okay? I just want to,
And the TTA number.
and the so the 776.
Now, and also, you would, in order to fulfill those contractual requirements, we would have to add on whatever the increase is in retirements and health insurance.
Mhm.
Okay, so, obviously, we are here tonight, November 16th. There's not going to be a default budget tonight, but these are the, I guess, the numbers that we're going to need from your office here, what those numbers would be. And again, whatever these, I know by definition, these CIP items are one-year type improvements.
Well, unless it's a phased project, right? Unless it's phase 5 of the locker project, I mean, that's a project likely to recur again, so it's recurring. So I think those are different than pick one that you don't think's ever gonna recur again.
Oh, I don't intend,
Oh,
no,
no,
oh,
no,
God, no.
that is not-
No,
that is
no.
not the
That's no,
definition
no,
of a
God, no.
non-recurring.
You can say it about anything. You can say about anything that
That's
you
right.
pass. Well, that's not what that means.
Well, you're interpreting the intent. of it.
Okay, well, I guess that'll be interpreted by the will of the board.
And
So,
that is, by definition, interpreted by the will of the board.
so, I certainly, yeah, I don't look at $1.2 million of CIP improvements of, yeah, well, that's, you gotta have $1.2 million in there for default budget. I clearly don't see that. Not based on my experience, so, any rate, I think that was,
So you wouldn't have any money for any kind of,
I'd have to,
default, right? Is that what
that's
you're
correct.
thinking?
What I'm thinking is,
facilities
I am looking at the RSAs, and what I've worked when I was in the 9 years in the Municipal Budget Committee in Atkinson, which is under the same state law. What a default budget is if the voters choose not to accept a proposed budget. The purpose of the default budget is to keep your facilities going, so you don't close the entity, whether it's a town or a school. Which is why, obviously, you go over last, everything we talked, you go over the, you start with last year's approved budget, you increase it to honor any and all contractual arrangements, and then you deduct the one-time expenses. Therefore, you keep running. So, it's, who knows what happens, how often that
So you're saying everything on the CIP is a one-time expense?
I'm guessing, yeah.
So no more lockers, no more laptops, no more
Paving.
Chromebooks, no more desktops.
I'm not saying no more. This was put in the CIP. It wasn't part of your operating budget. It was part of your operating budget.
Yes, it was part of the operating, goes.
No, it's not.
the-
It's
no,
a
these
C-
went- No, these went into operating budgets.
This is a capital improvement.
No, so the laptops, the technology stuff's all in the technology budget.
It is part of the
Operating budget.
but it is a capital expense.
It's a capital
Part of
expense.
that, and it's proportioned to the towns according to EPV
Right,
as
so
opposed to
You're
ABM.
still not answering my question. So no more so next year, you would take out laptops, Chromebooks, desktops, let me keep going, servers. No more playground equipment, vans, furnishers, windows, lockers, rubber roofs, restrooms,
Right.
okay. Wanna know, sure our public understands that we
Well, yeah,
wouldn't be
but
doing
yeah,
any kind of
this is
improvement at all.
If they pass a default budget, that's correct. Yeah, that's what that means. That's why historically, I didn't write these laws. These are state laws. These are state RSAs. There's really no big secret to it. And that's why they do stuff like honor contracts. You have contracts that the voters have voted on, they get honored. You know, it's the employment contracts or any other type of contract.
So, transportation, food service,
Those get honored. Those are contracts, they get honored. Absolutely. Absolutely. And to me, I guess during one of my conversations with the superintendent, I think it was more of a question I think he had, so there might be a little difference of opinion, probably difference of opinion right in this room, of what, this board eliminated 2 positions a couple meetings ago. My understanding of that,
right? The funding for those 2 deans, yes?
that's correct.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, we eliminated positions. Now, there might be some question on to, I believe those don't belong in the default budget, or anything else this board decides. I would, I've asked Dr. Farah, I've had a chat about it, but obviously I've asked the will of the board. I would like the board to give me permission and to seek legal municipal counsel to make sure that anything this board's doing regarding this default budget is 100% correct. I'm not interested in going down the road of finding out that this board took a vote and found out that it didn't stand up to the law, if you will, and to make sure. So if, you know, and stuff like, if the board eliminates a position, because I know that the superintendent is working on, I believe he's waiting for the final budget to get on his desk. I know of at least one staff member who that's his call when he wants to do that. That happens every year. People retire at Timberlane, and so someone let him share their retirement plans with him in the first week of school. It is his plan not to fill that position. So that's when he decides to make that public, whatever. That would be the type of thing that I would be looking at, a position that if it's decided the positions are getting filled, that position should be removed from default budget. Any positions that this school board votes to remove, we should now pass on to the budget committee so they adjust their budget. Because their job is obviously to prepare a budget, but the budget committee does not have any authority over positions. This board has authority over positions. So I think it's wise if there's that a conversation should be held with some kind of New Hampshire Municipal Council to make sure that we've got our T's crossed, I's dotted, make sure we're fine.
I would strongly encourage you to do that. Without that opinion, I would not sign a default budget.
That's fine. I'm definitely not in a position. I definitely not want to go down the road that I want to sit back and hold votes and pass something, and then we find out that wasn't done right. I'm definitely not.
Who would you think to speak to? Our own
Well,
lawyer or somebody else?
I personally think I'd rather. I think I'd rather talk to our lawyer as well as a different person. We already have Timberlane already has a lawyer. I think it makes sense to something of this magnitude. Whether it's Wadley, there are several. There's a half dozen very large firms in the Granite State that specialize in municipal and school law, and that's you know, I won't have to look too hard to find a firm that does that. I don't want to, you know, obviously that makes sense to me to talk to people who specialize in that. Dan?
Will you bring back a written?
Absolutely.
I mean, because we're not obviously all going to be there. I mean, poor person if we were.
I would certainly hope and expect that you wouldn't sit back and say, trust me, I met this guy, was on East Road, Dunkin' Donuts, worked out pretty good, and it seemed like it worked out pretty good. So that's, but I believe in light of, well, hey, I don't want to talk about past boards, but I just have a different way of looking at things, and I want to be clear that everything you're doing, we're aware of what you're doing. It's not like I'm sitting back saying, well, why did you do that? This is new to me, that as we sit here November 16th saying, what's the budget going to be? I don't know. I'll let you know. I don't, and looking minutes in the past, I'm not 100% comfortable with the way that went down. Because when someone would come in and say, well, it's 76 million, then 2 weeks later, it's 73.2. I'm hoping that this extra week, the 10 days, gets us out of that historically $2 to $6 million, let's make a deal type thing. That obviously stuff has gone back and forth between boards, between the administration. And this, by the way, happened even before Dr. Metzler was the superintendent of schools. This is always, it's different at the school level than I experienced at the town level. It's interesting how it's
different workings.
So it's, any rate, so, and I'm well aware of who owns what budget. With the school board, we have the default budget. Budget committee has their budget. In a perfect world, as the superintendent said to me, he'd like this, it'd be great if we were all on the same page. Well, it's hard to be on the same page when we don't have a number to be on a page. So the only number I have is last year's numbers. So last year's numbers, so as this board, and I know the superintendent, the superintendent has more options than this board does because we are locked into a budget deadline. He, as the CEO of our district, can do things in March and April. There's all kinds of things he can still do, which we can't do that. You know, once the budget season passes, it's passed. On to the next one. So, any rate, he's working on his things. Dr. Wilson.
Oh, I wanted you to finish, but
Yeah.
I just want to offer a couple of thoughts about the default budget. And ever since Senate Bill 2 was passed, the default budget has been interpreted and discussed and debated many different ways. So it's clear as mud sometimes out there.
I
And
don't
there
disagree.
are many different attorneys' opinions out there. But one of the things that has become pretty clear through practice and through interpretation is that under the notion of contracted obligations, IEP services are considered contractual obligations. We are making a contractual obligation to kids. So
Makes sense.
services that are given to students that may require an expert or a consultant or a resource teacher, those resources are usually held as part of that contractual agreement. So I just want to bring that to your attention.
That would make perfect sense, yeah, absolutely.
The second thing is if you want to take out positions, which is what you're talking about, if you look at the true essence of the law, the law says it's one-time expenditures, it's last year's budget, and one-time expenditures. If you're true to the law, you can't take out those positions because it's based on last year's. But I understand your thinking, but then you're tweaking it for that purpose, which is why other people want to tweak it for another purpose, to add things in. So when you get your interpretation or your...
Fair enough.
Yeah. Just be aware that the angst of default budgets have been felt in many different districts.
As I've said on many occasions, I will never do anything to hurt Timberlane. So when I see something of this magnitude, yes, I want to seek counsel of people. This is what those people live and breathe. So, yes, you have the school lawyer, but I'd also like to hear that this is a serious matter. So when you start talking $1 million, or I want to know what's going on. So that's why I don't expect the board to take my experience. I'm well aware there's state RSAs, and then you're right. There's going to be different interpretations. So I will be happy to, with the blessing of the board, go do some homework and get some written opinion here, so we can make that decision. Mrs. Sherman.
So would it be appropriate for us to entertain a motion to authorize the chair of the board to seek out a lawyer or municipal lawyer of his choosing to gain perspective? Would that be an appropriate motion for us to do? Along with our own, what I call our own lawyer that we
Right.
have on staff, if you want to call it that. We've got one.
We got a council record, yes.
Council
I'd like to see
record.
those two.
So that you'd get two different, and they may be, I hope they wouldn't be two different opinions, but they might. But I think we should make I think we should entertain a motion to do that and not just,
Well, that's why I'd asked.
I'll make that motion.
and I'll second it.
Okay.
You be clear in the motion?
I got it.
Okay.
Doug.
I was writing it as she was saying.
As I was saying it.
Another question that pertains to the default, and I have talked to Mrs. Green about this, but it seems rather odd to me, is the SAU budget has no default, yet we've added a position to that budget. So I do not understand how that gets, in essence, forced into the Timberlane default when it's a new position. I would like that question answered by a lawyer.
Last year's, It's not the year we just voted on, it's last year's SAU
So
budget.
that budget
but-
number.
So that SAU,
So this budget, the default budget would be last year's budget.
Right.
It got approved.
that position will not be in there.
Right.
That position would not be in
Right, but
there.
it was whatever
Yeah, that's
SAU
correct.
was last year,
Last
not
year.
this year.
Correct.
No, this is not, I think there is some, this dispute on this. That the SAU budget has no default, did we vote on a default budget for the SAU?
There is no,
There
there's
is,
no
okay,
provision
so
for it.
that
So it doesn't
means,
matter, it's whatever this year is, that's what it
That's
is.
77% of that goes into this,
Yeah, but I don't,
this
so the
line right
voted
here.
SAU budget that we voted on last night is not what we're putting in the default. We're putting the budget from the year before into our default?
that was part of last year's budget. That the voters, yeah, that's,
Yeah, but it's gonna
Correct.
be short, it's contractual,
That,
actually.
that is the question.
it's
That is the
contractual
question.
once a person gets hired.
Yes, but.
We don't determine that, because it's an SAU where it's our allocation.
Well,
I don't know,
again,
it's-
I'll be-
It's why we're gonna talk to the
There you
lawyer,
go.
right?
That's the question that
So-
has to go to the lawyer.
That's an interesting question.
And we don't.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting question, and it's shocking to me that the SAU or Timberlane Board has not asked that question before. Or actually, the Timberlane
Well,
Board,
it's-
when they're building their.
Historically, it
default
was a
budget.
smaller budget, and it's just getting larger. I think
Yes,
that,
but-
I'm guessing that's why it hasn't come up.
Well, it should have come up regardless when you were building the default. Regardless of, because you added a position,
Well, we
what, 2
can-
years ago?
I'll be happy to,
It's in there, 77% is in there.
No, but the question becomes, in the default, does the position that was added,
No.
I don't know, somebody's
Well,
saying
there's-
yes, somebody's saying no, so we do need
There's another nuance.
clarification.
What if, and I'm just asking the question, Kim, because I think this is really interesting.
I don't know what the
What
answer-
if, no, it
Okay.
gets
Yeah.
more Byzantine. What if we take it out of the default
That's what I just
and
said.
Hampstead doesn't?
Doesn't, yep.
Well, that's,
So it's
that's,
partially funded, potentially.
23% of it's funded and 77%.
Right, I mean, like, I don't know. That's,
I think that's why it's recognized as a contractual obligation.
uh,
We're contracted with Hampstead to fulfill, yeah,
okay, well, again, great question, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. This is,
can't touch that 2 million or whatever. Yeah.
this is why we, anyhow,
that's why God made lawyers.
Mrs. Green.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of paying twice for the same advice. I would just like to get advice from a new municipal council. I see no reason to duplicate the cost and at all.
I do.
One
I
is
do.
enough.
I think it's important.
One is enough.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think we should.
It's very important that we get it from our own council as well.
I'm surprised you want to spend any legal money at all, but I think we should get it from both.
Well, yeah, so to me, it's a, it'll probably make for a nice seminar for one of these law firms, you know.
True.
I'm sure of that. So, okay, so there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous?
it was
No,
unanimous.
it wasn't unanimous.
No, she
Oh, it's
raised her
unanimous.
Oh, you raise it later?
Yes, it's unanimous.
She's delayed.
Okay, thank you. So, seeing how this is your first, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if you did anything of the budget last year. Did we involve in the budget last year?
Not to the extent of being as forward-facing. No.
So, in light of, I don't know, as you get involved and as you prepare your proposed budget, there are certain things I'm sure that you see that we don't see, that you would have your recommendations that would be part of a default. These one-time expenses, I mean, I don't think we're gonna start going through the Timberlane records here and looking for.
It's a very healthy discussion to be having, and I appreciate the attention that you're giving to the legal aspects of what goes into putting it together, and I think that that's a very good thing. I will offer two perspectives in terms of what's out there, and I think we had talked about this perhaps in a committee meeting, that when I look at and consider the default budget, and I think Danville had a similar situation, from a technical perspective, right, you should be able to go on a default budget for 10 years, right? So default, right? So the expenses that get included in that keep the buildings going, but at what point if you're on a default budget every year, so for example, we talked about computers or Chromebooks, those are part of our technology plan. So you asked, and so these are things just to consider, because I think the perspective on it that I have is that things should be going for, and it was a very interesting observation from your town, I think, on the roads. You know, they got fixed when the fire department couldn't go down them anymore, but, you know. So I think that's one perspective. And the other interesting thing about it is that when we look at the appropriations that were approved, and those get into the next budget, the default budget, with the additions and subtractions as the case may be, the default budget doesn't really work as well. And I don't know what the answer is. It doesn't work as well when you're able to, when you're not in a growing, when you're not growing your, a student population, or you're not having out of control growth within the district. And it's an interesting thing because it doesn't really address that. And when you look at the increases that we have in terms of our union contracts and in terms of what we have for our health insurance, and perhaps an increase in pension and retirement benefits on an annual basis, when we come in at an operating budget below those numbers, as a general proposition, it seems like a math problem when we're able to do that in the operating budget. So just food for thought. When you're able to find efficiencies within the process, and you say, are there things that I see that may not be seen? I put things out there for consideration. I certainly hope that we can have a fruitful discussion, and I very much appreciate being able to go out and actually have some confidence as to what those numbers will be, what will be included in that, although you may get two different opinions. I don't even want to go there. I don't want to go there. I was just thinking you may end up with two different schools of thought.
By the way, please feel free to bring in a proposed budget that's less than that. If there's anything, that'd be great.
I was having the discussion with Dr. Wilson on when you look at these significant percentage increases on our labor and unions and on health, and what a big percentage of their budget it is that they comprise. Contractually, they're there and they go into default, but we're able to find some efficiencies within the operating budget in a lot of cases. And it's tough because, again, when you're in a situation that you're growing a lot, that default budget says no, you're allowed what you have in terms of funding and appropriations for positions. So you're not adding positions. But what happens when you're in a situation, as you brought up, does that go both ways? It's an interesting thing. It just doesn't work as well in an environment that we're in. It really is there to control that growth and give voters another option. And well, you do the best you can do. It's just perspective. So I don't know if I answered the question, or were you thinking more specifically about things that maybe part of the default budget will come in, and I'm certainly more than happy to discuss what those will look like. And certainly, if you have any guidance on those issues, it would probably be a lot easier to let me know.
We're in the season. As far as I'm concerned now, it's just very key. We are clearly in the season here, and as far as you, I believe, public hearing on the proposed budget, January 11th. So, is that the date? I mean, it's to refresh my memory here. It's been a while here.
Well, the budget has to be posted on what date? Do you know, Kathy?
The budget for the public hearing?
Yeah.
I think it has to be posted 7 days. If you look on that, it should also say like the last day for
Citizen petitions.
Yep.
Deadline for citizen petitions, deadline for bond.
So I think the bond, if I'm not mistaken, the public hearing needs to be posted 7 days in advance of the public hearing. It's 7 days.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure now.
So it has to be posted by the 4th.
So okay, so that is,
That's just the public hearing on the budget. That has nothing to do
that's
with
public here, but
anything
I believe that is the date that the default budget has to be done by.
No, the default budget can be changed up to the point that the ballots are printed. And when are the ballots typically printed? The default budget doesn't have to be done by the public hearing, no.
They don't hear the default.
They don't hear
It
the
says
default budget.
January 29th is the last day to post warrant, so the default budget has to be on the warrant.
Right.
So the warrant, but
Right,
not in
okay.
the hearing.
Yeah.
So that's,
So
I knew,
There's no hearing on
That would be when the
Right.
ballots.
okay,
have-
so
has
I
to
know
be
there's
the
a
ballots.
magic
That's
date.
January 29th.
Yeah, there's a,
So that
after the
we can
hearing.
work on that until,
well, that's good. So that's, I knew it was I thought it was in mid-January. I didn't realize it was at the end of January.
No.
yeah.
Okay? All right, so, so that is what, that was my main focus, to putting this on the item.
Could I just ask, though, do we have to have a public hearing on the default budget?
No.
No.
It's not part of the hearing.
No? Kim?
Can I ask a couple questions? So, just thinking on the default budget, so as the bond principal and interest goes down, that drops in the default budget also, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That drops in the operating budget as well.
Okay. Well, in the operating budget, I just wanted to confirm that on the default. We had a $70,000 contract, Osier. That would be considered a one-time contract, would it not? That amount then would need to come out of the default budget?
Really, that's at the discretion of the board
Correct.
to some degree.
So that is, to me, a one-time expense.
I think you'd,
What if it isn't to the rest of, so we're gonna vote on all
We're
those
gonna have
things?
to, well,
Well, I think-
it is up to the discretion
Well,
of the
again,
board. Yeah.
this is why I want to meet with the, let me get some,
and I think
We
I
haven't
think
made a
I think
contract obligation.
right, and I think the thing to consider there is I don't know. I'd have to check and see how, if our contract is just for this year, this season. I don't know if it goes into next. Goes to April, so it's not into the next technical budget year. But in that scenario, what do we have, or do we have coverage to make sure that the fields are maintained?
Another question I have, because it still keeps me awake at night, is this retirement number at 4.8 million that went up from 4.2. Do we have a reason for that?
So it's up 4.8 in the current year?
You've got it in 4.879 budgeted for 18 budget.
Yep.
And it was 4.2 in the 17 budget. And from 16 to 17, I did go back and look at NHRS to see what the increase in the percentage was from 16 to 17. It was about 1.75. 17 to 18, it's about 2.5. So when I kind of do a little interpolation between those, I just not getting that number. Can you explain that number, that budgeted 18 number for retirement? Why is
So when you say that it went up,
increase?
when it went up 2%, so you would take the number that's there and multiply it by 2%?
Well,
About 1.02.
what I looked at, what's the increase in retirement from 17 to 18?
You
That's
don't
considered
have that
about two.
in front of me. And we went over this in the office. I believe it was,
No, I did, I think,
yeah, but the 2% is more like 80,000.
right, and this is up 600,000.
I would have to check the numbers. A 2% increase in the retirement figure of, let's say, 15% to begin with, is a much greater percentage of increase. So it's a 2% percentage increase, but it's a 10%, or whatever it is, 15% increase overall. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. And I have them right upstairs.
But the actual number was 4.2 million. The year before. So as we didn't like hire an extra 50 teachers or.
No.
So what happened is that goes up, like you say, it's approximately, I think it was just over 2%. I think it was a 2.2%. It went over, I think went up over 2%. But 2% is, again, under $100,000. It's not 600,000.
May I ask a question for clarification? When you say it went up 2%?
Percentage points.
Yeah. Percentage.
Is that
Percentage
the
points,
percent?
right.
So it
Is
went
that-
from 15 to 17?
Yes.
So it's a
yes.
15 to 17?
Yes.
So really, that's not
That's a
2%, that's,
13% increase.
thank you,
It's 2 percentage points, and I don't know where my math
Right.
teacher is when I need him.
right.
It's a 2 percentage points, but what did you say?
Well, if it went from 15 to 17%, hold on a second, let me grab my handy calculator.
Percentage points.
That's 2 percentage points. So if it went from 15 to 17%, that means the increase is, wait, 13% total, 13.3%, because it's 17 divided by 15.
So if we
Okay?
take-
You understand where the
Yeah,
difference
I
is?
get that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at the 4.2 to 4.6, you're probably, and if that was the number, you'd be at about 10%, a little more.
I'm
in
still
terms
not
of
following.
increase.
If you take 15% of last year's payroll,
Right,
it's a number. Now you take 17% of this year's payroll.
right.
How's it go up $600,000? So it is. We went from 15% of last year's payroll. That's why the 4.2 million. Now the state said this year you're giving us 17%. So you pretty much had the same payroll up 2.5%. That's not $600,000. Can't be.
Our payroll is tens of millions, like,
Well, no, we're just looking at, well, we're,
But you can't multiply it by the payroll number, I see what you're saying. Not by the retirement number, you have to multiply it by the payroll number.
Right.
yeah.
So if
That's
I,
correct, that's what I'm saying. So
if I were
last year's payroll, whatever it was,
it's 32 million.
15% of that
32 million?
is how you came up with that.
15% of 32 million, let's assume that number. And now we're
Makes sense.
jumping to 17% of 30.
Okay,
But
32
payroll goes up.
million times.
Yes.
0.15
Payroll went up a
is-
couple cent, 2 to
4.8.
2.5%.
just to find the true difference, run 32
so
at 15 and then
32
32 million at 17. I think you'll find.
Times 0.17
Okay,
is 5.44. So that's up
5.44.
600,000.
1,000.
It works, yeah. Because you have to
Right,
add that.
not the 4 million retirement, it's the payroll.
it's off the payroll.
Payroll goes up and 17% of that payroll.
Yes, we
This year.
we got it now.
I
Yeah.
just
Okay.
calculated
So
it
really,
out
so that's
that way.
600,000 's about,
Wow, 600's about right. Yeah.
2 points, 2 percentage points is 13% of
Yeah.
15%.
Yeah.
So from, if you look at that 13%, you could almost look at the 4.2 million and multiply it by 1.13 and come up with the 4.6.
and we just went through that math.
Yeah. I think you guys did it the other way. You guys did it on the actual salary, and I just did it on the actual retirement number. So,
Okay,
Oh, good.
good.
any other questions on, well, we have these two here from the budget?
Good. I'd like to hear your answers from the attorney.
Okay,
What are you gonna do about the,
I did want to revisit the Performing Arts Center,
yeah, what are you
Okay.
gonna do about
because
that?
I have been sitting here anxiously waiting an answer for approval of the 70,000 to execute this project.
I don't think there's no current money, this is not in the budget right now, is that what we're saying?
This is not encumbered in the budget right now.
Well, it's not encumbered, obviously, because you haven't, there's no contract, it's obviously not encumbered.
Right,
So we were waiting for numbers.
but it's not, I mean, whoever built the, is this coming out of, I don't know, repair and maintenance line, 43X? That number was not built into that line, was it? The 70,000? I
No,
mean,
it was not.
whoever
Right.
developed the budget last year
Did not build in.
did not build.
Which I
that
can
in.
tell you, I have no.
So my suggestion is, if it was gonna do it, you'd be putting it into next year's budget. We're in the budget season, I have no idea why you wouldn't,
Just drop
Put it into the next year's budget.
that's what
I'd CIP it if I were you.
Only wanted to bring it to the board because it was brought to the board last year as a safety and health concern, so.
I think it wasn't CIP last year.
No,
No?
No, it was a,
don't make.
Or did
me-
it just
Don't make me open the big.
So,
It did, I believe it was recommended perhaps as part of the budget process, and then it was,
added
I don't
on.
even think it ever even made it in. It was decided to undertake in that current
Took a
fiscal year.
study, you undertook a study.
We tried to get it done, but the timeline didn't line up at all.
okay, well, listen. Duly noted, Tommy, you clearly went to bat for them, okay?
My job.
That's your job, there you go, that's exactly. But that makes sense to me that, you're in the season now, just going to next year's budget.
Could put it on a warrant, could make a warrant article out of it.
Good.
Speaking of the PAC, do we have an update on this repair and replace on the outside wall since we have the CIP in front of us? Is this still kind of what we're looking at here for a number? 70,000?
It's on an upcoming agenda, I believe. I'm not sure that.
You
It
prepared?
is on an upcoming.
I think would be.
Still on the.
So we're still looking.
I am still working on that. I've made a lot of progress, but I'd rather
Yeah.
wait for a future
Okay, that's
agenda to
fine.
give you a complete report.
Thank you, that'd be great. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Talk more about the CIP in terms of,
Yeah, we got it.
no, about this current CIP, about, now that we've made a decision on Sandown Central.
Well, I think you wanna deal with the, see what Lloyd's got to say.
But I'm talking 18, 19 on Sandown Central. Yeah, okay.
Okay, treasurer appointment.
You want to,
Oh, I'm sorry.
space
Thank you very
for our
much.
student representative?
Oh, that's right.
Thank you, geez, that's right. I saw you sneak in, so very good.
Alright. Well, first off, apologies for being late. I was actually over at the PAC. We were doing a creative writing workshop kind of thing that I was kind of in charge of, so I had to start to get that going.
You made the right decision.
I figured I'd be able to show up a little bit later and just do the report partway through. I figured that was gonna work, and I think it will. I don't really have much these past 2 weeks. I do have a couple things. At the middle school, I know that like last meeting we had that big donation from New Balance about the robotics, but actually the middle school, their robotics team just had their first ever competition on November 11th, so they went and participated in that, the first ever for the middle school, which wasn't part of that New Balance, but it was kind of cool that was similar time frames kind of to me. And then at the high school this week right now, currently we're in the middle of is Spirit Week at the high school. It's a big thing. Student council runs that at the high school. We have a lot of out of school events. We had the variety show, which is like a talent show, last night. We have our carnival coming up tomorrow night. Do a lot of the honor societies, different clubs like sell food and things like that. Get some money for scholarships and stuff for the end of the year. So everyone's welcome to that. Bring some money, make some donations. Buy some food and things from different booths.
Is that out at the track?
Yeah, it's going to be down as long as weather permitting, as long as it doesn't rain or snow. I mean, it could be cold enough to snow. As long as it doesn't do that, it'll be at the track. If it does end up raining for some reason, it shouldn't. We'll move it up to the CAF as we did, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. And then tomorrow as well, actually right after the carnival, there's a Milkman improv show. The improv team at the high school is putting on a show at like 7, I believe. They're showing their 10-year anniversary documentary. So they've been doing it with their thing for 10 years, and now they're doing a little documentary kind of thing for it. And then tomorrow is also the STEMspiration Day at the high school for kind of STEM and in the CAF and library doing some little presentations about the STEM department, things like that. And then that is about all I have. It was a very slow kind of week as we've kind of moved into the groove of things, kind of getting down with Q2. So.
I also see she was featured in the Tribune, so you had the field hockey team went back-to-back with champions, and
we did. Yeah, they.
And then you had someone from that team was named the MVP.
I think it was Tara McKinnon.
Yeah, Tara
Karen is-
McKinnon,
yeah.
a current senior at the high school. She's incredible. That entire team, some of the games the game I went to, the entire team is incredible. They do. Looking at them compared to other schools and I don't know a lot about field hockey, but what I've seen is.
But back-to-back state championships.
That's
it's
a
pretty
good thing, obviously. Yeah.
So, and then when you pick up an MVP award, that's kind of a nice,
Yeah.
nice
Awesome
touch.
coaching with that team as well.
Sounds good.
I also forgot to mention one thing that I think is kind of important. This past Friday when we had the early release, or the Thursday when we had the early release, sorry, we had the Veterans Day brunch at the high school. So the ROCAP of the Historical Honor Society kind of put that on. We had 6 veterans come and share their stories. We've been doing this for a few years now, so I was part of that because I am in ROCAP. I'm actually an officer in that as well, so I was there. It was a lot of fun. The veterans really enjoyed it, and the students as well had a lot of fun learning, listening to these veterans who, risked their lives for us, and it was very, very cool, very fun, and learning experience for I think a lot of us. So that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Treasurer's appointment. Myself and Sue and Kim, Monday night, interviewed 3 very qualified individuals, 3 actually very impressive individuals. And we have come with a recommendation. We're recommending, that some of you were meeting last night, we're recommending Martha Sumner from Plastow. She's a former selectman, budget committee, but, I mean, done all kinds of things for the town of Blastow. He's vice president at Enterprise Bank. He's a pretty highly qualified person who I think would be a fantastic addition to our staff here within, in performing that function as our treasurer. Sue, you did a great job last night of speaking about, you know, Donna's background and she, I'm sorry, wow. And it's not even 10.
I know.
Wow.
You're doing so well.
I was doing so well. So, and so Martha is, she's just a highly experienced individual, and
We're lucky to have her, I think.
to get a
so.
person of that, you know, background, I guess we're pretty fortunate.
I'll make a motion to, that we appoint her.
Second.
Those in favor?
Oh, I'd like discussion. Who were the other candidates?
The other candidates were,
Say them out loud? Wait, is that appropriate to say out loud?
I think we say all that.
About that?
Position.
Yeah, I think so. So we had
Christine Mason
Mason
from
from
Atkinson,
Atkinson.
and Rolanda Hughes
Hughes
from
from
Plastow.
Plastow.
Both very, all very qualified
Yeah.
individuals.
Wouldn't it be a good idea to have a different treasurer for Timberlane than for the SAU? Because we just appointed Martha for the SAU treasurer. Why don't we get some diversification and appoint a different person for Timberlane?
Me personally, I think it's, I look at the SAU and it's a very small operation, especially for the.
The
that,
big operation
you
is
know,
Timberlane.
Yeah, Timberlane is where is all the volume, and where about 90-somewhat% of the money is, probably more like 98% of the money is.
And frankly, I don't see the point. It's kind of a.
Yep, so, and, I mean, me personally, I think, I'm just glad you only take this position on personally. I've known this individual for a lot of years, and,
20 years, right?
yeah, so,
And does she have a history of swimming against the stream if necessary?
It's really necessary.
I don't know what stream she'd be swimming
I
against,
assume
but
she
I mean,
can swim?
she's a very credible individual, I can tell you that, in terms of,
Very savvy.
yeah, you know, highly ethical person that, she's pretty much on the ball when it comes to the world of finances, I can tell you that. So, anyway, motion on the floor. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Could we have a short bio break?
We can do that. We can have, that's, yeah.
Thank you.
Let's have,
The night's young.
wow, that's good. Wow, that's great.
I'm sorry, the what?
I said the night's young.
The night's young.
The thing is,
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we're back on. Welcome back. Let's go into, we have some policies to review for second read and first read.
not doing the warrant articles?
Can we do the warrant article?
I'll be happy to talk more, okay?
We don't have any warrant articles just yet.
I guess we're done then.
Okay, let's,
Well, no, I have one I want to discuss, and it would be based on what Brian finds out from the lawyer in terms of, and I know this was before, and then it went back in, but removing the SAU budget and making it a standalone budget, especially if we're in a position where, in essence, there's no SAU default budget, and we are contractually obligated to put that into our default budget. So I think that's a warrant that we may want to consider.
Would the
What's your
Hampstead board have to do the same thing? Yeah, they'd have to agree to do.
what do you mean?
Well, somebody has to put the warrant article
Somebody has to put the
forward.
warrant forward.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a board warrant.
But somebody's gotta put it
What,
forward.
what's the warrant then? What is the warrant?
Citizens petition one?
Something has to be on the warrant in Hampstead,
Yeah.
equivalent.
Well, what is the warrant?
But we can put it forward as our board, and that
Yes.
would require Hampstead to put it on.
No, it wouldn't.
No, I don't
No,
think
it
it would
wouldn't?
require it.
Well,
We can't require it to
it
do
has
that.
to be
Compelling
on,
of the town, do something.
I'm sorry?
No, I was answering her question.
It has to be in both towns, but it only,
That's right.
in both districts, but it only needs to pass by a majority vote. Because, it didn't carry last time in Hampstead.
That's right,
But
but it
it
was
was
on both
still-
warrants.
It was on both warrants last time, and it didn't carry in Hampstead. It carried in Timberlane,
That's
but
right.
it was still removed from both districts' budgets.
But you need somebody to post it in Hampstead.
Okay, so what
Yeah.
you,
So-
so it's to
Whether
take
it's a
the,
citizen or,
the warrant is to take the SAU budget, which is just over 2 million,
2.1
Right.
something.
and to,
Make it a standalone budget that would then go to the voters as the SAU budget. That was, and maybe somebody can fill me in on why it got put back into the Timberlane budget, because it was a standalone budget for a number of years.
They voted it back in.
No, it wasn't a number, it was one year. Donna's
year.
right.
1 year, and then they voted back in. And what,
It was a citizen's petition to vote it back in,
Yes.
so.
so it was a separate warrant. For 1 year, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It's about the process. The warrant article is about the process of the SAU budget. So you put the question to the voters, do they want to change the process? Then they vote yea or nay, and then that appears the next year with your budget. You either do it or you don't do it as a separate budget warrant article, depending upon the vote in March. It doesn't change anything this year for putting the SAU budget separate.
Go forward the next
Right,
year.
right.
So, but
Yeah,
Donna's
yeah,
right, we
yeah,
only
from
did
now.
it 1 year, and then it got motioned back to roll it back together again. All right, now, the advantage of doing it this way is that it does require an SAU default budget. If it stands alone, then there is an SAU default budget, and the citizens can vote down the SAU budget, and then they get the SAU default budget. Of course, that's all predicated on an honest default budget.
Well, any rate, wait a minute. Okay, so, do we have any, does anyone's room have any historical data? Has the SAU overexpended its budget?
No, they can't, nobody can overexpend a budget. They have in the past.
Wait, excuse me.
Well, Donna knows it all, so.
Well, wait a minute, okay, I'm asking, okay, let's get back here now.
Always turn the
The,
TV off.
the SAU budget, from what I understand, is part of the Timberlane budget right now.
77% of it is.
I understand that, but
And
it's.
an apportion to
it-
Hampstead.
Correct. So, has it happened that where they had overexpended their budget?
I don't have that information.
Okay.
It's not something that I'm privy to, but typically, in most SAUs, it doesn't happen. They don't overexpend.
Donna says it does, so she must be right.
Well, I'm just, Sue, please.
I don't know, I don't have that information, so
Okay.
my gut reaction is,
Well,
it doesn't happen.
I'm
There
at-
was an audit report that indicated that the SAU did overextend its budget.
What year was that?
Actually, the year that it had to stand alone.
okay.
But it was a standalone budget.
Well, I can clearly see it didn't happen
Didn't happen
last year,
year.
because it was,
Right.
it was underexpended by about
That's right.
140,000, I think, is my recollection. And it- considering it's the budget of about 2 million, that's, I was trying to get a feel for what recent history is. So,
I mean, all the financial reports are out there, so, that's something we can get information if that's what you need.
You want to get that information, Brian? or-
well, I just think, I think that what's the true intent here? The intent is to track their expenses, is it what?
No, the intent would be to give the voters the opportunity to vote on a default budget for the SAU, which is what they don't have now, apparently, because of the way the process is working, where it is part of our budget.
Yeah, but-
I believe in giving the voters as much choice as they can, so that would be the reason to pull it out of our budget.
But just, was it 2 years ago, the voters decided they didn't want that option? So-
Sandown did not vote that way. Sandown
Well,
voted to
again-
keep
I
it
mean,
out.
there's 4 towns.
Right, so,
I just want to say.
Five
Sandown,
towns, sorry, you're right.
towns.
okay, so there was a petitioned article, is that what you're saying?
Citizens petition.
Yes,
Yeah.
petition, so, to put it back in the budget,
Put it back in the, yeah.
okay? So, I guess,
Well, I mean, some of it would depend on what, again,
Well,
what the
well,
legal
again,
council says in
and-
terms of that.
Well,
Then
that's,
let's
but,
get those answers first.
well, that's fine, so to me, but it's, so and you're saying, Peter, that was 2 years ago?
Yes.
Well, that's relatively recent.
Yeah, we just
Yeah,
did
I
it.
mean, I don't,
It is.
That's recent, so to me, so I guess the voters have had their opportunity to weigh in, and
I guess that's true.
so as far as I'm,
You know, first they weighed in to take it out.
Well, that's
right?
the thing. I
And,
mean,
and then the next year, there's like, that's all? That's all it is? Let's put it back in, basically.
Okay.
It was out for 1 year.
all right, all right.
And just, you know, just to be open and honest here, I neither saw nor signed any of those citizens petitions. I don't know. I don't even know who put them in.
Well, it doesn't really matter.
No,
It-
just, you know.
It's on a ballot, and
Yeah.
the voters have spoken, and it's pretty recent, so if someone said, yeah, the voters spoke about this 40 years ago, I'd say, that's
Yeah,
not.
different story,
That's
sure.
a-
citizens petitions, you never know. Could get that one this time to pull it out again, you know? So,
Yeah, okay. All right, so let's see if we can jump into some policy here. And might as well take them right in the order here that laid out for us nicely. So we have second read here of EBBB, Accident Injury Incident Reports. Okay,
take a motion to accept that for second read.
Second?
No, to accept it, period.
it's already,
Accept it.
motion made and seconded.
I'd still like to say that it doesn't have any requirement to notify the parents in here, so I'm voting against it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of accepting? Report? Opposed? So,
So what's the vote, please?
vote was 8 to 1.
One?
Yep.
Make a motion to accept BEDB, Agenda Preparation and Dissemination.
Second.
I'd like to point out that the changes made eliminate other business on the agenda. It says, "The board shall follow the order of business set up by the agenda unless the order is altered by a majority vote of the members present. Items of business not on the agenda will be submitted to the school board for consideration at a future meeting." So therefore, nobody can bring up other items. I don't think that's a good idea.
I agree, that's,
So you want to put other business back on the agenda?
well, you can be on the agenda, but how you go about putting it?
May I?
Taken.
Some people can approach the board chair to have things put on subsequent agendas.
That's what I'm trying to do, yes.
And that's the process that you've set in place already.
Right.
That's
what
correct.
we've
This,
been doing.
this says what you are currently doing right now, and that is, you want to be notified if someone wants an other business item on the agenda, so that you can get it on the agenda.
This is mirroring what you're already doing.
Not
Boards.
having a meeting within the meeting.
Well, where does it say that they can do that?
Well, right there is where it's
Items
saying,
of business,
basically, you can't get an item on the agenda unless you submit it to the chair.
Oh, okay,
Before,
I'm sorry.
you could request it under other business.
Yeah, well then, and I'm sorry, and thank you, I was just looking at what was lined out, I did not see what's below.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Belcher.
So in other words, in like 2 weeks past between our meetings, and if something comes up that day or the day before and there wasn't time, or, the agenda comes out almost immediately after the next meeting sometimes, although I'm glad to see that practice has stopped recently.
Yep.
But, there could be a whole week that passes once the agenda's been published, and this completely limits us from putting any new items on the agenda under other business. And I think that's far too
An
restrictive
agenda
for
item,
us.
not an item under other business, but have it put as an agenda item.
But agendas can be changed. And
Altered.
you've
Right.
done that, I've done
Yeah,
that
Yeah.
I've done
in the
that
past.
Sure.
almost right to the end.
And what happened tonight? So,
Yep. So it's not, I don't think it's a big deal, I think the chair can choose to put on something
I
at
think
the
it
last minute
avoids
if they want
having a
to.
meeting within the meeting.
Yep, okay.
Though you keep it and say under other business, items to be included in the next agenda can be brought forward. That allows you to bring items forward. My concern at doing it this way is if I send an email to the chair and the chair chooses to disregard that item and never put it on the agenda, the rest of the board is not ever gonna know.
Right.
You can make a motion at any point in time, though. You could raise your hand and make a motion
Under where? Where would
under
we
at any
make
point in
that?
time in the meeting.
Say, yeah, I mean,
I thought
which
that
has
was the
happened.
purpose of other
People said, you
business.
know,
It's
point of
happened.
order or whatever, I just, you know, where's my agenda item that I wanted on?
I mean, for the anomalies, you can do that. I think this point of this policy is to not make it a normal practice to just,
I think you have plenty of time, almost up to the meeting time, to make adjustments to the agenda to accommodate,
People on the agenda.
right, a reasonable situation.
Obviously, I'm a little tainted by it. I set it up, so it seems to be working.
That's right.
The best I can tell.
Yeah.
Working.
I think it works with you, but you don't wanna set a policy for the person. You wanna set a policy so that it doesn't matter which person is in that position, it works for everybody.
But I think this would work no matter who's in that position. And at any point in time, if it becomes a failure and it doesn't work, you can change it.
It doesn't say anywhere in this policy that a board member can make a motion to introduce business into a meeting. Doesn't say that anywhere.
right, it doesn't say you can't.
Right.
It specifically says that you can't. It says items of business not on the agenda will be submitted to the board chair for consideration at a future meeting. So it specifically says you can't.
It does, it says you can't make a motion. If it doesn't use that language, I
Items of
would.
business not on the agenda will be considered at a future meeting.
I gotta think someone could make a motion to ask something and
Yeah.
be addressed.
Right there in paragraph 2, items not included in the agenda may be brought before the meeting and discussed at the discretion of the board.
There you go.
What does that mean before the meeting, though?
Well, before the meeting, in other words, presented to. When you bring something before a board.
You bring
you
it to the board.
Board, yeah, to the board. Well, I think that is ambiguous.
Well,
But that's how
Maybe
it's,
brought-
that's how they, that's the terminology they use. When you present something before a board.
Well, we did it
Presented
tonight.
to.
We did it tonight
No,
by
before
just
the meeting,
getting a
it
lawyer
says.
involved.
Yes,
Yeah,
well, this would
before
be
the
the meeting
meeting.
for
Yeah,
the board.
no, it says before the meeting, not before the board. Items not included in the agenda may be brought before the meeting
Discussed.
and discussed at the discretion of the board.
I'm just confused about that
Yeah.
timing before the meeting.
Right.
When exactly does that take place?
That's right.
I'm sorry, I just think that's all a red herring. I'm gonna vote in favor of this.
No, items not included in the agenda may be
Brought before the
considered by
board.
the board, maybe.
Just put, be brought before the board.
During the meeting.
It doesn't even have to say when. It's-
Okay,
Right.
I don't think-
brought before the board.
I don't think
That's
it needs
more
to s-
clear.
It
Yeah.
doesn't need to say
is.
during, when you know, when you say something is brought before something, it means to bring to it and
Right.
propose to.
That's more clear, I think, at least in my
Yes.
mind, than just before
It
the
says
meeting.
before.
No, but it says
Absolutely.
before the meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
so,
Let's just make it before
Make
the
it before
board.
the board then.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
get rid of the word the meeting and put the board.
Somebody make the amendment.
I'll make a motion to amend this to say before the board.
I'll second it.
Make the drive-through, McDonald's.
Those in favor of the amendment? Oh, wait. Unanimous. So now with that, can we now,
No.
Raise your hand.
No,
okay, opposed?
no,
Abstain?
I'm standing.
Okay.
So your vote is?
8-0-1.
For the amendment.
Amendment,
That's to motion to amend.
Yes.
Right? So now you want to take a vote on the motion as amended? Or you're just,
Correct.
you're fine? What's the board doing?
I think we need a,
I'll make a motion to,
well, the motion's on the floor already.
That's it.
oh, it is, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
We're good.
You can move the vote.
That too.
It's okay, call the question now?
Yep.
All those in favor of the amended policy? Opposed? 8-4, 1 against.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept
Can you stop just for a
GCGA?
second?
Sorry.
Because it goes too quick. I'm not keeping up with you. So that was voted as amended, and what was the tally, please?
8-1. 8-1.
Yes,
And that was Mrs.
8-4,
Yep.
Mrs. Green, yes.
Thank you very much.
I just made a motion to accept GCGA.
Second. Sorry.
I have a problem with this one, as I discussed before, that I think it's the board that should be setting the process and rate of pay for long-term substitutes in conference with the superintendent, of course. But I don't, we control the purse strings. The taxpayers look to us to be prudent stewards of their money. The superintendent is not accountable to the taxpayers. We should be the ones deciding rates of pay for long-term substitutes.
No way.
I would suggest that the superintendent has to stay within the budget.
Because
Yeah,
we hold him to that.
Right.
If we gave him X amount of money to spend on teachers,
I
then he
don't,
spends
I
that.
don't think
and-
the board wants to get involved in,
No,
in
no.
How much they
substitute
pay
pay.
for
We
substitute.
actually don't even get involved in regular teachers' pay.
No,
Well, it says the
that's a
rate,
union.
this policy, excuse me, Mrs. Sherman, it says the rate of per diem pay for substitute teachers shall be established by the school board.
Yeah.
And then it's saying that the rate for long-term substitutes will be established by the superintendent.
Yeah, that's a different
Okay.
position. So when, for instance, we could do the nurse thing, remember when I think Dr. Metzler came and said, we need to increase the substitute rate for nurses. We're not attracting a nurse to come in and help us out at whatever we're paying, $81 or whatever.
Right.
So remember, he brought that, we voted to push it up,
Exactly.
because it was a
That's-
critical, right.
And that's the way it should work.
Right, so you're saying every year we should set the rate for all subs?
Well, or when the superintendent feels that there's an issue, he should come to us.
I think he would.
Right, except this gives him a free rein with most of the money. And, where the per diem rate for substitutes is trivial compared to what we pay long-term substitutes. If anything, we should be setting the rate for long-term substitutes. But we should be setting the rate for both of them, is my point.
Do you know how many long-term subs we
Well,
have in the district?
Okay. I guess Mrs. Green's made her point. I think we all understand the issue. Okay?
Really? Okay.
All those in favor of the, call for a vote, policy? Opposed? There is abstention,
So one more, thank you.
so did you get that vote?
So that was Mrs. Green and Mr. Spiro, you are not, you opposed?
Yes.
I oppose, yes.
And then there was an abstention.
Thank you. Yeah.
I make a motion to accept policy GCI, professional development opportunities. Is that second read or
Second.
first? Yes, second.
Anybody second?
What?
Okay, I have a problem with this because the title was changed from staff to professional development opportunities. And it seems to me that change was made specifically to allow consultants to take professional opportunities at taxpayer expense. And I want to make sure that that's absolutely not permitted in this policy.
Okay.
The title might have been changed.
Well,
Look
the
at the end
wording
of the
is
first
staff
sentence. It's
members.
all about staff members.
Yes,
End of the
it's
first
the
sentence.
It's,
I know. but I
Beginning of the
want- I
second
want-
sentence. Middle of the third sentence. It says it's about staff.
nevertheless, I want it explicit that it does not apply to.
Why does it say that, though? Why is that word
Can
staff?
I explain?
Oh, thank you.
The terminology is staff development is antiquated. They don't use that term anymore. They always call it professional development. So it's not about a person, it's about professional, our skills and knowledge and content, that development. So even when you go to any of the national or the state department, the state programs, they all call it professional development. Very rarely do you see staff development used anymore. So it's just an antiquated term.
Okay, thank you.
So that may be under lodging and travel expenses. However, it says the district will only pay lodging, travel expenses for workshops, seminars, and conferences that are deemed as part of a job assignment. That could include a consultant, right there.
Really?
Well, let's say
I
it
don't
did.
think so.
Well, let's just for discussion purposes, let's say it did. I would certainly hope that who's ever negotiating with that consultant, that's part of what they're negotiating.
Under no circumstances should we be paying for workshops, seminars, and conferences for consultants. And that should be enshrined in our policy and not just be relied on some loosey-goosey contract.
Big word.
Again,
Well, maybe this would help clarify it. At the end of the first sentence, if we said part-time and full-time staff, that would clarify that it would have to be somebody that's working for the district. A consultant would not be considered either part-time or full-time staff. Would that be an
It says
acceptable?
staff anyways, I would take that as staff.
Staff is not.
I would just like to see the word consultants put in there.
We'll make sure they can
There's
get,
no gray area.
it includes consultants?
So you want it to
No.
include consultants?
So it excludes them.
Specifically excludes consultants.
So that means when you're having.
wait a minute, yeah.
We
so-
can put it at the very last sentence. This policy specifically excludes consultants.
You mean it's moved to consultants?
I don't know, I think this
This is
may
about a
have-
personal thing.
this may have,
Okay, go ahead. Kelly, go ahead.
this may have an implication on, something that came up a little earlier, when we talk about the, IEPs being contractual obligations. If you have someone that is an outside person working with a student, and they have to travel for that student or for something, this might preclude them from, being able to get reimbursed for whatever they have to pay.
I beg
Is
to
that a
differ.
valid?
I differ.
That's a valid concern, okay.
No, it's specifically for workshops, seminars, conferences, and so on.
Wait a minute. Is it Donna?
That's her
Donna.
point.
It's in-service training.
Right.
That could be on-site, off-site.
I just asked the assistant superintendent on Kelly's example, if that's a valid concern. It's a valid concern, so, in that example, if that would preclude that person from doing their job, I don't understand, how can we do that? Why would we do that, is a better way of putting it.
First of all, those people who would be accompanying students would not be consultants.
How do we, what do you mean, how do we know that?
Aren't some of them considered consultant?
I know some of them was, I believe, they're Ceres employees, so they're not.
So which students do we have going to workshops, seminars, and conferences?
It would be for the
In
services of the
service.
child.
For service.
Training, meaning in service for students.
Mrs. Doobie?
Wouldn't any particular consultant have their, any travel expenses lined out, or excuse me, broken out into a particular contract that it would, I don't understand why there would be any overlapping. It seems to me that whether it's Ceresc or any other contract, that would need to be spelled out in their contract with the district, separate from what we do for our in-house staff. I don't see.
Do you know anything about that, Dr. Wilson? Can you
Well-
shed some light on that?
Yeah, most times in the contract, you will see those things
Right.
spelled out.
Right.
The thing that you don't see is when we have professional development and we want to encourage some of the consultants to take part in that, mostly in district. So they'll come and they may or may not, but they will be part of the professional development that we offer. If it has to be something that is connected to a student's program, if they don't have the background and we wish to give it to them, then we will ask them to take part in professional development. For example, Orton Gillingham type of training for literacy. If the consultant doesn't have it, but it's required for that student's purposes, and there's a training, there are some times when, and it doesn't happen often, we will include that person as part of the team that maybe goes up for the training. We do have to reimburse travel. We reimburse travel to work for some of these consultants. So the professional development piece, although it doesn't happen very often with consultants, I don't want to have a policy that precludes it for all purposes when it's really associated with someone's IEP or, and that's usually when it's connected.
So if it's associated with somebody's IEP, I would suggest that consultant pay their own way, as all consultants need to in the private sector.
Well, this isn't the private sector, and the thing is, so.
No bueno.
And you're wrong on that, by the way. Have you ever worked in the private sector?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Well,
I was just asking, because that's not the way I've seen it work in companies I've worked for.
And have you been a consultant?
I have, actually.
Okay, I'll vote for you.
okay, let's,
What's the question?
I think I think that, did it make sense to you, Steph, that answer?
Yeah, it does. I think that it definitely does. I understand what you're saying, Dr. Wilson, but I think that Mrs. Green's point about it, kind of opening the door for consultants, I think is warranted. So I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the wording, but I don't really see it. I don't really know how it can be changed at this
And I-
point.
It doesn't happen often.
We don't want to, I guess the key is, that's the concern, is that I don't want to prevent what's been happening here in terms of these IEPs, the examples you've given, so.
But I want to prevent consultants from getting reimbursed.
Well, we just
from the
heard-
district. Certain consultants are okay and certain consultants aren't. And where do we draw the line?
It's about
We
the
have
job
a
assignment.
problem right now. We have a
Really?
problem right now.
What problem?
So how are we gonna address it in policy?
What's the problem?
I think we've heard this concern repeated multiple times tonight. I'd like to ask the question to be called.
Okay.
We're not getting any new info, you know.
So I would suggest we table this, because I don't think this is ready to come before us. This needs more work, in my opinion.
Okay, so
Maybe the board, maybe something to the effect that if there's gonna be compensation for consultants, that the board has to approve it.
I don't know how you can do that. We have, at least from what I'm understanding, you have a lot of consultants with special education, associated with special education. And so you'd be you couldn't do it the board doesn't meet enough to approve those sorts of, I don't know, whatever, in-service or professional development opportunities. I agree that it's kind of an odd thing, because I understand where you're coming from on some consultants, but on the consultants that we're looking at, that the district requires all the time, that we rely on, have to be able to do these development opportunities in the district in order to get a consultant that's, current, needs to provide those for them, so
Excuse me if I may, then maybe it makes sense to include that. Just include those particular consultants who work with IEPs into this policy. Because they seem to be the ones that we obviously don't want to preclude from being able to go on these.
But we want to preclude others.
Well, I think that if we have consultants that are working with, students with IEPs, that I certainly can see how that would take precedence.
Okay, let's do this. Let's table this thing so I can see who these consultants are, because obviously I don't want to prevent this IEP process from doing what we've been doing, so.
Well, then there's a motion on the floor to accept this.
Right.
Okay.
We need to vote
Okay.
on something here.
Okay, motion to accept the policy as written. All those in favor? Against? Okay.
So now this goes back to the way it was written.
Mhm.
Right.
That's right.
And it goes back to policy.
Remand it back to policy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Professional staff visitations, field.
Make a motion to accept for second, just second read.
So move to second.
To move to second read, and what we're doing is repealing this.
Second.
All those in favor? Second read. Unanimous.
Just for the members of the public, we just repealed a policy on professional staff visitations and conferences that said those who attended out-of-state conferences have to write a brief written summary to the superintendent about the program they attended. So we just repealed that. That's all. I just
Okay.
want the public.
We passed it forward for first read.
Yep.
Yeah, but people
Yeah.
that are watching
Can't
We
see.
pushed it
have
forward
the-
for first read. We didn't repeal it. We pushed it forward for first read.
Oh, this one was first read?
These are
Yeah.
first reads.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
these are all
Sorry.
first reads.
All right, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, professional activities of teachers / administrators.
Make a motion to move it to second read.
I'll second.
Okay. In favor of moving forward to second read?
Well, okay, sorry, never mind.
Okay, all in favor for second read? Opposed? Okay. Ready. Thank you. So, let's get back on, it's our policies here for the evening here. I might press the agenda. I got it. Dr. Wilson, do you have anything on the administrator's report?
In your packet, I think you see the administrators, the principals' reports here, and I don't have any,
Okay,
for me, nothing.
yes,
Thank you.
that's it. And that's it. Personnel, nothing?
No personnel report.
Okay, thank you much. Committee reports. Okay, so, what's going on with the committee reports here? Let's see, we have a, well, let's see, we'll start on this side, because actually, we're well underway, and our strategic plan is going pretty well. So,
Next community forum is November 27th. All 4 towns are invited. Community members, parents, staff, for input. It's 6:30 to 8:30 at Sandown North. That's my PR plug.
nice job. Let's see, CIP right now is in limbo right now, or what?
Not limbo, it's frozen.
Frozen, okay.
We had a wellness meeting, heard some great reports about what's going on for wellness planning for the year. I could go on and on about the amazing things they're doing at the elementary schools and at the middle school and high school to try and encourage staff health and wellness as well as students. It was a very good meeting, attended by a gal from Kingston, talking about Austin 17 House up in Brentwood, which is a new spot for teens to go up and have some healthy choices for social activities. Looks like a great place, and I know that Timberlane was sending up some of their student leaders to go check it out and see if that's something we'd want to really advertise down to our kids. So it's for 6th through 12, students 6th grade through 12th grade. So that was good. So that was a wellness meeting. We had a curriculum meeting. Talked a lot about the block scheduling. Things seem to be going pretty well. Refresh my memory, what else did we talk about? Nothing.
Project Lead.
Oh, we talked about the Project Lead the Way, some statistics. We also looked at the program of studies that has to get done so early to get into the printers' hands and get on the websites, et cetera. So they've been working on that.
We looked at testing results.
We looked at some first-run testing results. So I would assume we'd have a testing result presentation at some point here, so That's all we did in October.
Could I ask Mrs. Sherman a couple of questions? Chairman Bowman?
Sure.
So, could you tell us more about that 6 through 12 facility? What kind of building is it in?
So it's in the, Grace.
Ministry International.
That facility,
Yeah,
the one
okay.
that you and I had talked, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And they're using the gymnasium and a couple of classrooms right now, but they could use potentially 13 rooms up there for other activities, you know, whether it's sewing classes or puzzle building or robotics or whatever. So it's just barely getting started, and the lovely gal that's trying to get it going was here making a pitch, really, that please come up and see it, please send your kids, and she's been working with Tim, Lena, and Kelly Bennett, our social workers, to get kids up there, so they were going up.
Are we running a bus up there? I thought there was talk about running a bus up there.
No.
Or how's that working?
I don't know how that group went. What's the name of the group, Brian, that would have gone? One of the.
Peer Outreach?
Peer Outreach, thank you, buddy. Peer Outreach went on up. That's not a huge group, that's not a big group.
It's not very big.
I
no,
don't
it's about
know
8
if they
kids.
went in a little minibus, how they went up, but they did go up and participate in an afternoon training, working with other students. So I don't know if they went, I assume they went by bus, but we didn't talk about how they got there.
We did talk about maybe looking into having a regular run once
Yeah,
they're established or something.
It's a ways up the road.
It is a long
I mean,
way.
it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's Sanborn's heavily, Epping, Brentwood, because they're just so closer. It's a little bit further for us to go up, so,
That's
but she's
quite a ways.
encouraging us to come up and take a look at it, and see if we want to encourage something happening here, whether it's a bus or, right now, I think the kids are driving themselves up there, so they're older kids.
Okay, one other question about the program of studies. When you say it's being worked on
Organized,
for the next academic year?
Yeah, next academic.
So, don't we need, I would like to see the board a little bit more actively involved in that program of studies this year, because it just comes to us when it's already formulated, and I would like us to be a little more proactive about it.
Okay, we can put that on, I'll take that to the committee and see where it is in the hopper here, where they're at, but it was kind of the first run and draft, and, you know, we're gonna change this page to look like this. It was more physical stuff, not content at this point.
We do have representatives on the board on that committee, so, you know, if
Three of
there's
us.
input.
3, yeah.
Yeah, if there's input, take it to the representatives who can also present it.
Okay, thank you, that's a good idea. So I would like to suggest that we put that on the agenda for the next meeting, because I think we need to do some rationalization of course offerings.
Well, then that's not necessarily the program, it's the program of studies in conjunction with what the enrollments of certain courses look like over some historical period.
Yeah, and they.
Correct? You're talking about, just looking at the program of studies does not really tell you much.
Well,
program
I
studies
don't,
just
but I
the
don't want the
courses.
program of studies going to the printer for the next academic year without some input about what the course
From us?
offerings should be, ultimately, which has been the case. We haven't had any input on it whatsoever.
I think there was input from the educational professionals on what the program of studies should be.
Right, but not from the board.
No, from 3 members of the board who are on
Three
the.
members of the board sit on that committee, and
Well, that's news to me, because I've never had a report back from any of these people in the 3 years that I've been on the
Well,
board.
what's Sue just given you? I'm sorry, I missed something.
Well, Sue just gave me a report from curriculum and assessment.
Right.
yeah, but the
That's the
curriculum
committee, right.
assessment does the program of studies, listens to it. We turn page by page, looked at the changes. I want to make page 15. We're going to make this bold title, and we're going to move this course over here, and it's going to be a math course, not a physics course, and.
In past years, board members who are on that committee have made suggestions and driven some changes in
German was one of
in
those
the-
we drew.
in that program of studies. For sure.
We have a process.
Well, I don't recall any board vote for much of that.
Board vote?
so-
Okay, all right,
Okay, thank
okay,
you.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Anything, Kelly?
Yes, we had a safety committee meeting Tuesday, this past Tuesday. It was fairly brief. Basically, all the schools have completed their required testing, done their off-site evacuations. run through all their tests, and everything seems to be going pretty well. Everything's working. Other than that, we're moving forward.
Great. Policy, I chaired a meeting tonight, and I guess we went through, I don't know, 8 or 9 policies for first read or whatever. So the board will be seeing our work shortly here. Peter, Greg, and
Yeah.
Jack.
If you guys want to flip back to your CIP.
Sure.
One, I just want to note that there's 2 that Mr. Flynn, the principal of the middle school, or there was 1 that he pulled out. I mean, it's zeroed out in the newest one that Jeff just gave us.
Okay.
I just wanted to point it out that it got pulled out of there because he doesn't want to do that. It was $15,000, and that was FACB 009.
Yep.
And then we corrected a mistake that was on there from the next line down, the FACB 0011. That one's got taken off, and the tennis courts, FACS 005. Those all got removed from the CIP. Now, I do have a couple of other questions that the board wanted me to bring to you. One being, what is the board's feeling on removing curbing?
It's already done, I thought.
How does a board, how do
I
thought it already happened.
No, because it's on the CIP for
Atkinson Academy.
It happened in the.
It happened
Parking
at
lot,
the
yeah.
high school, the middle school,
Check it
there's
out.
yep, Tom left, which is fine, I wanted him to speak to it, because I heard him say something's going back in, but, so that may not be on there right now, but they wanted to know how the board felt about curbing.
How do I feel about curbing?
Do you want it, do you not want it, I mean, that's,
It seems problematic.
It's a
And
trip.
different aspects of it seem like there's problems with it.
right,
Curbings can have issues for facilities crews trying to clear areas, as well as they can cause slips, trips, and falls when the snow is kind of pushed up against it and it becomes a little slippery pad, if you will. It can become problems for tires, but it can also give a warning to a vehicle that's turning and hits a curb and realizing that it's heading in that direction. I think that was something that was brought
that's
up.
part of what they were bringing up.
Yeah, that
for
was something
middle
that was
school,
brought up
rather
as a
than-
safety concern, that people could steer into it, into a lane. While I think that people should be paying attention to what they're doing while they're in a
Right.
car dropping their children off, it could happen.
Is my memory faulty, which is highly possible, or didn't our insurance company actually suggest we remove?
Due to the slips, trips, and falls.
Okay.
Somebody said it was
All
students, but I
information
thought
I'm
it was
just gonna bring
staff.
Okay, I'll be
Fine.
honest with you. As a builder developer, I always find it interesting how, on one day curbing's in, and then,
Oh, yeah.
then it's not. I'm just, okay.
Granite,
I can
no
just tell
granite.
you that it costs a lot of money to do when we have to build roads with them.
Yep.
And for some reason, someone 10 years later says, well, that doesn't make sense. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So.
It's fine,
So,
I'll bring that back.
Yeah.
And, so another thing was, the fiber connection between schools, the 218,000. Mr. Henderson went out cause the budget committee wanted to see if he could lease this equipment.
Yeah.
Okay, so he went out and got it, he can lease it, he can go through a leasing company. So, some of the board members said, well, we can leave the whole amount, the 218 in there, and then the school board can decide whether or not it's gonna be leased or not, and then the rest will just go back into the, towards the surplus at the end of the year, right? Some members were saying, no, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna lease, the school board can say now what it's gonna be, and I tried to say that it's gonna be a different board after March, after the budget's voted on, so kinda want a little direction on which way to go with that.
Why would we lease? What's the advantage to leasing
The
equipment?
payments will be lower,
Okay,
but we're gonna pay more.
okay. We're gonna pay more in the long run?
It's 3
Not all.
currently, so this isn't in July when he if this passes, right, all right, so let's just, perfect world, it passes. In July, he doesn't know, but currently the rate's 3.9. And he can do it for 3 or 5 years with a $1 buyout. That means at the end, we own it. This place owns it. Huh? This is my business.
So there's about, I can't remember the exact number, it's around $6 million of state surplus money that's being applied to grants for infrastructure for schools, particularly for high-speed internet access. I believe one of the criteria is it's like, you can't just pop up and say, give it to me, give it to me. It's got to be a plan, something you're already looking at, a planned event. I would encourage us to leave it in there. I know that they're looking at putting in a grant application for that.
Yeah.
So,
I don't want to put words in Ken's mouth, but I do believe when he was here presenting, he did say it was advantageous for us to purchase so that we could take advantage of that grant.
Right.
Because
versus leasing it and not
the
being able to get
grant
it.
isn't gonna last. It's only gonna be like 1 or
It's a
2
one-
payments.
it's, yeah, it's a one,
Worth
it's,
of
this
the
is a
lease.
one-off due to a surplus in the state.
But
If
there's,
we even
if
get the
there's,
grant.
if there's no prepayment penalty on the lease, then it doesn't matter whether you purchase it one-off or not in terms of the grant funding. Doesn't matter if there's no prepayment on the lease.
I don't-
Prepayment penalty, which typically is not gonna be on something like that.
And this is,
Yeah,
now
we
what
lease
is,
equipment all the time where I work, so, and the question becomes, again, we don't have a budget, but it's a difference between putting 60,000 in the budget this year or 218. So my decision's gonna be based on what the budget looks like as to whether or not you're gonna be able to absorb the whole cost, or whether you wanna to do it out over 3 or 5 years to lessen the impact on the taxpayers. I know you pay a little more on the one hand, but on the other hand, leasing to purchase is an easier route to go in some respects.
so this is, it's my, I've done both, not this kind. I've leased and purchased equipment, trucks. Technically speaking, lease is the true cost of what you buy, if you will. And lots of times, if it's the advantage to a lease, I don't know about in this particular instance, is you only pay for what you use, and then when that lease is up, you get the updated version.
Right. That
That's why
wouldn't be
I'm-
this case.
That's why I'm, yeah.
Yeah, that
Still
wouldn't
have
be
this
in this
piece of
case. It was
equipment.
sort of the old.
It's gonna be in the ground.
Okay,
So we lease to own, yeah.
okay, so this, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a
But I
matter,
mean,
it's
if
just a
we-
matter of financing is really all it really is.
But if we left it in the budget, we could always choose to,
The board can choose to lease it
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah, I know, the budget
instead of
committee-
purchasing it at
Yeah.
that point, but if we
We
left it in
spend the
there,
money, right?
we'd have the option.
Right?
Sure.
It's our money.
Okay,
It is our money, but it's gonna get spent one way or the other, so it's better not to put it in the first place.
Not put it in? Zero the line?
No, lease.
How do you say stuff's gonna get spent one way or the other? We have a surplus every year. So stuff doesn't get spent one way or the other.
I would just like to put this grant in perspective. That money is specifically targeted for the North Country where they are struggling with internet connectivity. I think it's unlikely that a town as developed and a district as wealthy as ours would have a shot at that money. So I think it's unlikely. I wouldn't put our hopes on getting grants.
Discussions I've had with Norm Major, who's chairman of Ways and Means, says that we have a reasonable shot at that.
There's not that many that are ready to go
Right, that's
like
right,
this.
that have a plan in
Yes.
place, that's correct.
And if that amount of money is available right now, which it is, it's still gonna be plenty left for them to go, all right, well, who else needs it?
As long as you have a viable plan, which if we have a plan,
Then we
and
do.
Ken said that when he presented, that we have a shot, even though it was intended for the North Country, there are not a lot that are ready.
Right.
We have a very good shot, because we have a plan that's been there prior to just, hey, let's do this, there's money.
Do this, right.
It was
He's
there
got
prior.
everything.
so, you're asking for,
I think we just leave it in here as the number
218.
until we see what we have for a budget.
Sure.
And then figure out what the better way to go with it is. I
absolutely.
certainly wouldn't take it out.
Don't
Yep.
take it out. I don't agree. Leave it in.
We got an answer on Sandown. So, I think that's it.
Well, we got an answer on Sandown. Remember, the whole Sandown issue raised its head again as we looked at the CIP in 1819. We, as a board, need to, and we don't need to do it tonight,
Right.
because we were trying to get out of here by 10, but, sorry. We need to look at this CIP again in terms of the Sandown to now consider what we want to do, because BudCom's also gonna need to do that now that we've made a decision, but I don't, do you wanna, we can do that next time.
Exactly. We're not gonna- Yeah, we're not gonna open up that can of worms right now. Okay, and it's along those same lines, I'm gonna deal with minutes in another meeting.
I do have other business.
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I haven't seen the correspondence folder at this end of the table. Has it gone around?
There wasn't much in there.
There it is.
Okay. Because there was, I'd like to ask Mr. Ward about emergency operation plans, because the Commissioner of Education sent a communication to all of the superintendents, and he tried to reach all school board members concerning the need for our emergency operation plan to be updated and up to date. Do you know what the status of ours is?
For the district one?
Yeah,
or
the district.
We've been,
I don't think that came up in the meeting, did it?
no, it didn't come up at the safety meeting, and we just did it. I don't know if we should talk about it in non-public.
Were you aware of the communication from the?
Nope.
No. It should be in the correspondence folder, because I.
It's not,
forwarded
I thought I saw.
Came from the commissioner to school board members?
Well, it came from the commissioner, and it was to be distributed to all superintendents and as many school boards as possible, so I forwarded it to Mr. Boyle.
I think the problem is when you forward to TRSB, it goes to Brian, but it goes to no one else, and we weren't aware.
just
till
found that
this
out tonight.
evening
Yes.
That he then needs to
found that out
forward
tonight.
it. We just found that out. So your emails that you sent. 'cause
Actually-
I got that too. I think you sent it to both
Actually,
of
what I
us.
found out, it goes to myself and Dr. Metzel, so we have,
Forward it on, Brian.
we have this incredible information, incredible, to
Forward it on.
TRSB.
Anyway, the point is that the commissioner is just reminding us all that we need to make sure we have any EOP up to date.
Yeah.
Well, Donna, if you have that, maybe you should forward it again and just forward it to Kelly and Sue, because it.
Well, Kelly's the chair, I just was hoping to
Okay,
remember that we
sure.
had already
Because
Okay.
hours
I
on
did
that.
read it, and it should, you should be aware of it.
Okay. Now, you had something, Dan, you said?
I did. So I'd like to, I don't think I need to make a motion, but I'd like to put that PAC item on a future agenda. I think we spent more time talking about cameras and microphones in this room than we did about a health issue at the PAC.
Oh,
Which pack?
You want to put what on?
the band sent, the band room?
The sound
Oh,
The sound.
problem at the PAC. I don't remember the timing, if you guys heard Mr. D in here and everybody in here about the decibel levels, and were they, I don't remember the timing. I know this has been going
It
on
was
for a long
before we
time.
were on the
It was
board,
before
but
I
I
was on the
did
board, right.
hear it.
There you go.
I just think that we should spend a little bit more time on that
okay.
in talking to Mr. Gary, and maybe have Mr. D come in and go over it a little bit better than
Well,
the
if
time
we-
we gave it.
If we don't have money in the current budget, it wasn't CIP'd.
Right.
Yep.
I just,
What,
I
where does that
just,
leave us?
I would like to spend, just put it on the agenda. That's all I
fine.
would like.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Reports of the school board,
No, this is
committee reports.
individual.
individual
Personal
reports.
Right.
My wife and I attended the Philharmonic at the PAC. They're now, Merrimack Valley Philharmonic calls it PAC their home, and it was a very good concert. Funny conductor, probably the most amusing conductor I've ever seen, and a large group of Timberlane grads and parents perform in that orchestra. It's definitely worthwhile. They'll be doing like a Pops concert, Christmas concert kind of thing over there next.
I can tell you that Greg and I, last week attended this ceremony there for Major Jeremy Grazek at the Atkinson Academy. He was an Atkinson Academy grad, Timberlane valedictorian, pretty impressive individual who died serving his country. It was an incredible ceremony. As always, the kids hit it out of the park. it was a great event. When they also had a nice ceremony honoring the veterans, there was I think about 8, 9 veterans there. Yeah. Nice stuff.
Gloucester had a great veterans with a lot of our Pollard and Timberland kids there. It was really nice. And, it's always great to hear somebody like Taylor April, who's got a gorgeous voice, sing the national anthem for us, and our scouts and our Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts. It was a very nice event too. So getting our kids engaged in the community, honoring our veterans was nice.
Anyone else? Mr. Green?
On Saturday, I will be attending a seminar called Downloading Myths and Facts about how New Hampshire school district budgets are impacted by the state, and it's a seminar put on by the School District Governance Association of New Hampshire.
Okay.
Where is that being held?
That is being held in Manchester at the Nacky Loeb School at 9:12.
9:12?
Saturday, yeah.
So,
What's the address there?
Public is invited. It's 749 East Industrial Park Drive.
Does that cost?
Yes, members are $10 and non-members are $15 payable at the door.
okay, very good. So, looks like our next meeting here.
It's gonna be at 6 o'clock on the 30th.
So we will, we'll meet before the, we've already done this, we already reserved the room at the high school, is that
Right.
We already reserved a room at 6 o'clock at the high school for the 30th.
You've got, what's here is correct. So you've got your operating budget, your first draft, your special meeting before you meet with the budget committee for November 30th, from 5:30 to 6:30 in the high school library. And then you have 15 minutes to get from there over to here for the joint meeting with this budget committee.
Okay. And,
5:30 is the start of that one. I don't think I updated the front of your agenda.
so now the budget committee is, well, obviously they're gonna be, next Thursday, night's Thanksgiving. They're meeting Tuesday. and it-
21st.
Yes, they're meeting 21st, so, I believe that's the goal here for Jeff to have a budget for the budget committee. That way-
He said
Right.
on or before, that's what he said.
Yeah.
So where will our copy of the budget
That's-
be posted? Will it?
That's why I'm bringing that up.
Ultimately, when you post it for the budget committee, it's posted to the public. It's a public site.
But we're not notified, unfortunately. We're not notified when it gets posted.
Okay, well, I'll make sure we're notified if it happens.
If I see it and nobody's been notified, I'll send an email out to say it's.
Please do, as the liaison.
I can, if I see it, I'll send it out that it's there.
That'd be fantastic.
To TRSB, where's he send it to?
No, I'll send it to TRSB. Whatever the last email is that went to everybody,
Well-
that's the one I'm replying to.
When will we
Okay.
find out, Brian?
Great.
On the 30th.
Good one, Greg.
Exactly. Wow. Well, Brian called me, he said, did you see the email? And
Yeah, bring you some chocolates. All right, I get it, no problem. Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion here to adjourn.
Make that motion.
to adjourn.
I'll second it or whatever, doesn't matter.
I'll yield to my colleague,
That's it.
I'll be the
Great.
second.
Let's just get out of here.
Okay, thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving.